Hopefully Joel or Sean will show up. I hadn't heard from either of them that they won't be here, so I expect them. But and then you guys saw the email from Peter that he has resigned.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
That's 3 down.
he wants to pursue. Yeah, so he won't. He's resigning from the committee. So
He wants to pursue something else?
yeah, exactly. So. All right, hey Joel. All right, quorum. Yes.
I did not
did that last time, too.
get the email.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't either.
I'll forward it.
Oh, I'm trying. Did it just go
It
to
was
you?
just today.
No, he went to OSAC at,
Yeah, 2 or
yeah.
3 o'clock or something.
So let's do roll call. We'll just go around and introduce ourselves, please. I'll start. Ryan Welch, Chair of
Now
OSAC.
roll call.
Marcy Strauss, member.
Joel White, member.
Tracy Keller, member.
Yeah, that's okay.
Allison James, town staff.
Kate Seneca, vice chair.
Sandy Hammerly, trustee liaison.
Sean Samuelson, member.
All right, thank you for making it. Appreciate it.
Ryan.
Yeah. So we're getting the new software to help tag in our meeting when we're talking about topics. So Kate is getting the trial by fire here, and Allison is helping her. So
Okay,
we're going
we're
to
good.
be a little patient while they work through this. All right, so now we are on to the agenda approval. Does anyone want to make any corrections to the agenda?
I spoke with Peter today, and I would like to add a discussion about the Plains Cottonwood. I didn't see it on there. We can discuss it with the Raptors or add it
Well,
as a
that was in the tree replacement town philosophy updates and look-aheads.
Why don't I see
It's on the
that?
back page.
Third one.
Perfect. Okay, so then I have some Raptor stuff that I'll talk about as well in one of those slots. So then I'm good.
Okay, any other changes to the agenda? Okay, so we don't need to make a motion then to adjust the agenda, so we are good there. Okay, we are going to move on to public comment. So, guys, are you here to make comment, or are you here just to watch tonight? All right, cool. Well, enjoy as much as you can. But thanks for being here. Okay, man, we're already right on schedule. So we're going to get into our.
I do have one
Oh, yeah.
question. I don't know if it needs to be added to the agenda. We talked about last meeting as a follow-up on our Louisville meeting about developers potentially presenting to OSAC and PROSAC, and then Allison had answered us via email or maybe it was your colleague, and said that that would be a board decision. Can we potentially discuss that at some point in this meeting? If we want to ask the board about if that's something we desire or not?
We can. We do need to be, I really want to make sure though that we're focused on the work plan tonight because we have to get it done tonight.
Yeah, you want
And
to
we need
put it at the end if we have time, or, I mean, you can carry over to the next.
Yeah, I
meeting,
just
too.
don't, but I'm not even sure what the topic is. I'm not following what we're even discussing.
So Louisville OSAC has each potential developer present to them, just as they do to the board. And after we went to that meeting, we discussed last month that that was something we were interested in, and we thought that that was a great idea, so we wouldn't have to be, nagging our town staff and asking them questions about the development plan when they don't know all the details, wherein the developer would. So Allison said, if that's something we were interested in, we would have to ask the board for that to happen.
I mean, yeah, we can amend the agenda to discuss it. I'm not sure that we would have more discussion than this, but.
No, I don't think so either. Just, are we interested in that? Do we want to ask the board?
Yeah, sure. So make a motion to.
Sure. To amend the agenda, you mean?
Yep.
I make a motion to amend the agenda to discuss potential developer presentations to OSAC.
Get a second?
Discuss.
Second.
Hold on one second. Yes.
To discuss.
Each of your third.
Potential future developer presentations to OSAC. And seconded by Joel, I think.
Heard a second. So any more discussion? Okay, we'll vote to amend the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, passes
Who was
unanimous.
second? Joel. Oh, thank you, Joel.
Okay, so let's do that first since we already started discussing it.
All right.
Okay, hold on. Are you ready? If you're not, that's fine.
Record.
I love technology.
Quick now. Well,
Good.
if we're discussing it, then.
It shouldn't be there, it should be here, right?
Would it be easier if we put it later and we did something else first?
Maybe.
Okay, well, we'll add it to the agenda, but let's not do that first. Let's go
Yep.
to the Boulder County responses to the open space and trail request. So I know I missed last time. I watched the discussion. It was good. I also watched ProStack's discussion, and they came essentially to the similar conclusion we did about what we should remove. We added track 919 where they did not in their recommendation, but they've already made a recommendation, so we just need to make ours. After talking to Allison, one of the discussions was to reword the Coal Creek Regional Trail discussion, or trail wording in the document. From talking to Allison, Boulder County understands it as written, and it actually would be less work if we don't change it than if we do. And so I recommend that we don't change the wording just because it's been in there for years and everybody understands on both sides what is meant by the trail.
Okay.
I mean, we can talk about it, we can discuss it. It was, which one was it? I forget which one. It's a Coal Creek Regional one.
Yeah, it's number 4, I think.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, with CCRT. But again, I think that because everyone's dialed in, we could just make our recommendation and we will match ProStack except for we're adding track 919 to get the Boulder County's reaction for that property. So if you're okay with that, I have already written what I think the recommendation should be. But if we want to discuss first, then I'll hold off on reading it.
Can you read it?
Yeah, I'll read it. I'll read the recommendation as written, or that I've written just to try to get ahead of this. So, in response to the Boulder County Parks and Open Space 2019 document titled Annual Open Space Trail and GIS Requests, OSAC recommends the following for the town of Superior. For open space, remove number 4 and add 3rd Avenue track 919. Location, this property is to the west of 3rd Avenue. I need to get of in there. 3rd Avenue in original town. Town of Superior property borders the property to the west and south, which is adjacent to Boulder County open space. Individual home lots border the property to the east and the north. It encompasses approximately 1.4 acres and is split in the middle by Coal Creek. And then there's a description. Coal Creek runs through the middle of the property with mature trees lining the creek on both sides. For trails, remove number 2, 5, and 6. So we can look at them again here, but these numbers reference the document. So for the open space, it was to remove Rogers Farm, which is being built, and then add the tract 919. And then for the trails, it was to remove 2, the Chew property, which is being built, remove 5, which is the add access to the Meadowlark Trail off of McCaslin. This was because Boulder said no. And then remove 6, the trail along McCaslin from Indiana to Calmonte, which they said was all within Superior's borders, and so they won't consider it. So that's a wordy, it's a wordy recommendation. But the main reason it's wordy is because we're adding the description to that new property that will go into the document, right? So we'll add in here and we'll add the description to the property for the document.
And nothing's different from what we talked about last month, other than the verbiage of the Meadowlark, right?
Except that, yeah, we're deciding not to change the verbiage. Yes. And again, just to reiterate, this is ProStack recommended removing the exact same open space and the same trails we did. So it's consistent just with our one addition. So I assume that we make both the recommendations and then town staff, i.e. Allison, will combine the two, which is fairly straightforward. Okay?
I'm good with the leaving the description alone if everybody knows what it is. I mean, I think that was our whole intent of changing the description, was to make sure it was more well-known, but if we're good with it, I'm good with it.
Agreed.
Great.
Okay. So I make a motion to pass the recommendation. Actually, before we do that, is there any other discussion? Everyone understands? Okay, I make a motion that we pass the recommendation as read.
I second.
Thanks, Sean.
Second, all in favor?
All
Aye.
right.
Anyone opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you. 5B, we're moving on now. 5B is to just talk briefly, just so we have a general understanding of what will be in the budget for next year that affects open space, or it generally affects us. And I pulled out two that I knew of that I thought were pretty big deals, but one was I'm calling it the DRCOG Trail, but it's the extension of the US 36 bikeway on the Superior side, right where it crosses over by Avista, where it'll continue down and through. So I think if I remember right, it will start next year, but be finished in 2021.
It'll basically be the design will be next year, and it won't be actually done until 2021.
Okay. And then the other one was there is budget for the Post Master Plan update. So that's good. That'll affect our work plan discussion, because we originally would say, provide input if any was needed, but now we know that there will be there'll be input needed next year. So that's good. Is there anything else you could think of that impacts open space in the budget that was?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. I listened to some of the meeting. It's hard to listen to budget meetings for that long. I don't know how you guys do it. But,
We get paid all that money.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, and this will go into potentially, with the trailhead next steps, because the thing missing from there is budget next year for anything within the trailhead enhancement. And we'll talk a little bit about that in 5E. Okay. Moving on. Are you guys ready for that additional item in the agenda?
Maybe.
Okay.
You think so? Yeah. What was it? Discussion. Do I number it? Development review. No, same.
Yeah, we'll just wait and see if anything comes up.
Okay.
Okay, we're ready. Okay. So Tracy, you brought it up. Would you like to start us off,
Yeah,
please?
I don't have much else to say on it, other than, when the last discussion came up about OSTEC and PROSTEC merging, one of the biggest points on that was that the duplicative nature of the two committees causes a burden on town staff. So if this could be one less thing to burden town staff with, it sounds like a great idea to me, but I don't know if developers would be up for that, but it doesn't seem like something that we shouldn't ask for if we desire it, so.
But it seems like it could be more of a burden on town staff if they have to organize that for PROSTEC, OSAC, CAPS, the Planning Commission, right? I mean, it sounds like we're actually making a lot more work than
Well, I just thought
less.
of the last development plan when we sat there at last minute asking Allison all these questions, and just rapid fire all this stuff that none of us knew, and Allison shouldn't be responsible for knowing either. If the developer had just planned to present to us at PROSTEC, that would have prevented all of that. And our recommendations didn't end up being entirely accurate from what I understand, because the developer had, comebacks on the open space amount that they had already addressed. So we could have that dialogue with them personally.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Ryan, I mean, could we, explore the possibility of having a presentation to all the committees? It's,
Yeah.
a Thursday night at 6 o'clock, and we could send 2 representatives or all representatives. I mean, I think it would be really helpful, because obviously our skills at reading a development plan are not great. And I think having the person who put this development plan forward to present it and thus to ask questions would probably be a lot more of a fruitful activity than us guessing and then, having it 2 months or 2 weeks later come up and say, oh, we've already talked to that, you just didn't understand it.
I like that idea more, just because, again, a developer of them being able to pick our meeting night, when those guys fly in from out of town, the probability of those lining up to me seems really hard.
And I get that, but I do know that granted Louisville is bigger, but it happens in Louisville, which I think is pretty amazing. So it's
So
not,
the developer will come just to their open space committee.
right,
Yep.
for every project. And they also go to their parks committee as well.
The other thing that I found interesting in looking at the one that we commented on, which, the development, the presentation I found the most interesting and enlightening wasn't from the developer, but it was from the planning commission. Their rundown of the development.
Was that the one Martin gave? No.
I don't remember who it was, but I know it was a member of town staff.
Steven.
Yeah, the one that Stephen gave, and that
Yeah.
it was really thorough.
Yeah.
Right, it could be skewed more towards the open space aspects rather than, some of the other things. It seems like, maybe there's something there, but I know that both Kate and I, after we watched that, we said, uh-oh, the recommendation we passed is a little off, because we learned a ton in that rather than from the documents that we had read.
But I think that's exactly the point, right? Because you guys learned a lot more
Yeah.
in that presentation than us staring at the screen for an hour and bantering back and forth.
But we got it like at the last minute and we were rushed.
Right.
And that was kind of inexcusable, the way it was presented to us. And there
Totally
was no
agree.
one to explain it to us. So it was just a bad set of circumstances. And I agree with Tracy. He's come in from California for other reasons. He can come and talk to us at OSAC, the developer.
What is, you say with Martin? Does he always do something like that at the planning commission?
Stephen
Oh,
Williams?
Stephen,
Sorry, I
Sorry.
said Martin.
Does he present,
Like what you watched, what you're referencing?
Yeah, what we watched was the town meeting where they
Okay.
presented
Yes,
the
okay.
plan to the
Presented to the
board.
board.
To the
and-
planning commission. That was,
Oh, it was the
That was
planning
planning
commission
commission.
meeting. It wasn't the board meeting to approve it. That's right.
right.
So to be clear, town staff presented it to the planning commission.
And then the developers.
Well, no, the planning, yeah.
It was,
Yeah.
it was Stephen, who's the town planner, he presented first, and it was everything. It was anything from what the parks looked like, what the homes looked like, and the colors of the homes, or the different, all of that. And then the developers had an opportunity to talk about it from their perspective.
Yeah.
And I agree with Brian that it was definitely what Stephen presented was hands down. I mean, it was all is valuable, but what he presented, because it was a much deeper dive into what the
Yep.
plan was, that it would have changed a lot of how we
We also
operate.
struggled with this whole communication path around how to provide input on developments. I mean, ever since I've been on, it's changed every year on how this is going. So it seems like, I don't know, Sandy, do you feel like the process is dialed in, or,
Well,
should
I
we be
have
asking
a
for more?
couple of comments related to it. The first one is OSAC and PROSAC and any of the other advisory committees are asked to weigh in at the behest of the town manager. The town boards may say, hey, we would like you to fill, but it's really the town manager's discretion. And generally what happens is the town manager then directs the Director of Parks and Rec what part of the development they would like you to opine on. The last time we had confusion because it was in the transition with Patrick. And so one of the things that I had specifically asked during the budget process was assistance for our planning staff, because I said, I think it's completely unfair that we just dump these proposals on our advisory committees with little to no guidance. And in the particular case it happened because Allison doesn't do land
And you
use
had just gotten it
proposals.
too.
And so, you know, I said, if we're going to ask our advisory committees to weigh in on this, we need to provide them better guidance, because we don't need them talking about the streets. We don't want them talking about the elevation of the buildings. All we want them talking about is, does this meet the OSAC expectations within the town? Is this what you would like to see? Would you like to see more open space or those kinds of things? So that's been part of the problem, is that we have not given you good guidance. Do I honestly believe that a developer is going to come in on a different schedule and present to you guys? I'm going to be God's honest truth. I don't believe it's going to happen. We have enough trouble scheduling those developers to come in and see us and to come in and see the Planning Commission. Now, there is a development proposal that's going to come up that it is going to be critical that we hear from you on. And so I will promise you that we will make sure that you have good information, and that's if the Arias comes to us, because there's a lot of open space questions there. I'm not sure that it's going to be the correct case with any of the remaining downtown Superior ones. You know, I can tell you right now on the Morgan Ranch development, it is being pushed in what I consider a breakneck pace. They want us to approve it by the end of the year, and it has not been approved by the Planning Commission at this point. But we will see it before the Planning Commission. So there's literally,
I'm sorry?
Morgan Ranch is downtown Superior.
The downtown, the big
It's the
blocks.
core.
Yeah, okay.
So there's literally no way you guys are even going to have an opportunity
Right.
to give feedback on that. So this is probably an issue that won't have to deal with until the first of the year. So hopefully when we get our new Parks and Rec director in, she will be able to help us make sure that we get better information for you guys when you're asked to comment on a land use proposal. I'm just not sure we're going to, I think it's a great idea for Louisville, but Louisville's in a little bit different situation than we are. They got way more parcels. Pretty much we got 2 left.
Well, to your point, and to Joel's point though, given that that is unlikely, should we do something like go to the Planning Commission meeting where
I think that's
town
great.
staff is presenting and the developer is actually presenting?
Yeah, and I see no problem with that, except for example, on Morgan Ranch, they've had 3 different meetings.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
a good
kind of
point.
hard for you to know when to go to be able to listen to any open space discussions. I mean, maybe the comment would be is for Ryan to have a discussion with the director of the Planning Commission and find out, are there places where they're going to talk about open space? And if yes, see if you can get them to give you some input on where they want to hear from you. Because obviously the planning commissioners aren't experts on open space like you are. There's not a lot of open space to comment on in Morgan Ranch. I mean,
Well, we asked about that, and they
Yeah.
said specifically because of the development,
yeah.
that we don't see where we need open space input on this project.
Yeah, I'm just, you know, most of it's concrete, first of all. So, you know, it's concrete or buildings or things like that. I haven't seen it. You know, it's in our packet that we got last night. But I certainly think on properties where we've got significant open space, we need to figure out a way to do it better. But I'm afraid we won't get the developer. So I think the bigger message is that you want to give a message to the town that if we want you to opine, then we need to give you better guidance on how to do it. Because giving you that Toll Brothers proposal was ridiculous. It was ridiculous for us, and we had 7 days to look at it. I think you guys had like 24 hours. So I think the thing is, rather than specifically say you want to see the developer, who you really want to hear from is town staff, because they're going to be able to sort through what are the parts that are important to you. So maybe it is Stephen comes again and says, okay, this is where I want to hear from open space. And Stephen knows those proposals inside and out.
There's no doubt. Watching,
So,
yeah.
I think that might be the better step, unless it's a massively huge proposal,
And
which,
that sounds amazing, but then we get back to the whole, are we burdening town staff issue?
if we're asking you to give an opinion, we need to prepare you to be able to give that opinion in a reasonable way so that you have the right information and that you know what we're asking for. So I do, is it asking too much of staff? In my opinion, absolutely not. That's what we pay them for. That's what I asked the town manager to hire additional staff for, was to make sure you guys had the resource you needed to opine for us, because that's what we pay you millions of dollars to do for us. But you need to, your time is important, and I don't want you wasting time looking at crap you don't need. But Stephen would be able to help that.
I
So
really
maybe
like-
it's a cooperation between the Parks and Rec director and Stephen
I
to
like
come
the
in.
idea of him having a set time where he's going to present it from those angles, and maybe ProStack and OSAC comes, and whoever can make it,
Yeah.
it would be another meeting, but it would be,
Great.
It wouldn't be monthly.
no, it would be
whenever
as
something comes
needed.
Yeah,
But
it's
then it could
whatever,
also
and it
be
might be a
on-
special meeting and you can, I mean, I don't know, but I do think we need to do a better job of providing the
Because that last
information.
one, yes, we didn't have much time, but there wasn't enough time for us to go watch the planning commission presentation, get back to a meeting, make our recommendation before the board was going to meet on it, right? I mean, there's almost, like, if the timing's wrong, almost 2 months there. And that's where, I felt so bad when Kate had to stand up, because we knew, we'd already made the recommendation and we had needed to read it.
It was a proud moment.
And she did awesome, and we should go watch that. Maybe we should play that at our dinner, because it was just awesome how well she did, but it was just tough, and so, but Sandy, you've heard us, Tracy, do you think we need to make an official recommendation to the board? Or do you think we're satisfied with hearing Sandy saying that we need to be doing this better? Now, one thing I will say is that for Zaharias, we are ahead of this, because we've already reviewed, we've already put a position paper out, like, we are ready to make our position known on that property, and that one was important enough that we got ahead of it. So I feel a little bit better about that.
I completely understand what Sandy's saying. I guess my thinking is, aren't we kind of the customer here? And the developer is kind of, shouldn't they be kind of concerned with what we as a town of Superior?
You make decisions. You're an advisory committee.
Right, but
we could certainly ask them, but the likelihood that these guys are gonna fly in from California for a 2-hour meeting.
I guess I'm struggling with, and I'm completely fine with going the approach of town staff if that's our better option. I just question why we don't have any power in that. These people don't live here, we do. They're proposing to do something to our town that will have impact on the entire town, regardless of how big or small the open space impacts are. I'm just surprised we don't have any power to say, before you get this proposal, it needs to go through a review of all the advisory committees, planning commission, and then town staff. I'm surprised to hear you say you guys are doing a review of something planning commission hasn't approved, because that to me is a backwards process, right? So.
It is beyond my control.
Okay.
If I were the town manager, I would not be asking the town board to review this proposal before the process has been completed by but that is not my call. We will see it on Monday, and the planning commission will not make its final determination. I do not believe we will finalize on Monday. But, it seems unlikely to me.
Yeah.
But there is some, this is being pushed pretty hard for us to get this between the end of the year, between now and the end of the year, which seems pretty tough when we have 3 meetings.
Okay.
And I understand completely where you're coming. In this one, I don't think there's really anywhere for you, this one that's coming up, there's
Sure.
really nowhere for you
No,
to.
I'm not concerned about that one as much as I am that your point about Louisville has a lot more parcels. That to me makes ours even more important because we have so few left. And so if we don't figure this process out until we have no more parcels, why are we even bothering? And I mean, Zaharias obviously is the big one, but I mean, there's some others. I mean, there's, it's very unlikely, but I mean, we could have a CenturyLink proposal, right?
Well, I mean, if you guys want to ask for that, you're certainly, you can request that. I just don't know how successful it will be.
Well,
And I won't stand in the way of it. But I just want you to have realistic expectations in light of the nature of the proposals we have left, whether this is actually going to be a process that we,
Sure.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago. It was probably only within the last, 2 or 3 years that the advisory committees were even asked to comment
Absolutely.
on proposals, which, was because several of us on the board knew we were not the experts on these things. So we did want to hear from our advisory committee. So we've made some progress.
We have, and we're so grateful for that.
I mean,
Wonderful.
because you know more than we do when it comes to things like open space and park space.
yeah. I mean, I don't want to derail us too far down. I mean, my final comment on this would be, it sounds like, in my opinion, the town presentation is probably what we want anyway, so I don't want to beat the dead horse of the developer. I just wanted to make that point. But I think we kind of need to agree as a group what we think is our best option, and then do we want to go with a formal recommendation? I think we probably do. I mean, if we don't make a formal recommendation, no board member is going to go watch this and say, oh, well, they talked about that, right?
Yeah, I'd love to hear
Well,
other
we
people's
actually do get any recommendations that come from an advisory committee. We do get your comments, and
Right,
they
but-
are included in the written write-up that comes to the board.
thoughts. No, I think he means.
Oh, you
not
need a
just
recommendation
discussion.
that you want to
If we
have
didn't
a
make
developer come out and make a
recommendation,
Or
presentation.
have a presentation from town staff, whichever we feel
Yeah.
collectively is the better option. I'm just saying, whatever we think is the better option, my opinion would be, we should recommend that we try to establish that.
Yeah, I agree with Joel. Some type of recommendation on what everyone collectively wants to do. What does everyone want to do?
I'm off my soapbox now.
Not much to say, but it would be great to have feedback from others.
Are you saying whether we want town staff to come and talk to us, whether we want to ask the developer to come and talk to us? I mean, I totally get your conversation, because from all of this, I too am concerned whether our voice is being heard, because if the developer won't come and talk to us, we're not that important, then it's concerning me as well. So who is the best person to come and talk to us?
It's not that the developer won't, it's the developer has limited
No,
time.
and I know that.
And, the advisory committees don't make decisions.
No, we
They
make recommendations, yeah.
which the board can ultimately override or accept. And so I want to be realistic about whether a developer is going to come in, and I just don't want you to get your hopes up that the developers are going to come in. We have enough trouble getting the developers to fit our schedule. So I just don't know whether we'll be able to get them to come in to meet with you, to meet with those ProStack and all the other people who might need to comment. So-
From the last experience, I feel strongly that it's town staff that we need the presentation from, and not the developer. The developer is going to sell, they're going to say whatever they need to say to sell it, right? They may not have the data, we'll get back to you. Town staff is ready, they've looked at it,
And
they
they
know
know
it
the
from
whole town
all the
dynamic, too.
angles,
Yep.
right? And they're not the ones making the money off of the deal.
Right.
It felt, just experiencing that really drove that home for me. So if we're going to ask for something, I think it should be, a town staff-led discussion for the committees. And I don't even know if we need to say OSAC, but for all the committees, to be able to have input on the development. And then it can be tailored towards our specific interests. And it won't, I mean, the other thing is that full presentation was an hour and a half. I mean, it obviously was a huge development, so it was a long presentation, but to the committee's point of view, it would maybe be 30 minutes, and then it would be discussion. I mean, it would be a lot more focused conversation. So I think that as much as Sandy has been very vocal about that last process not going very well, I think a recommendation from us to remind the board that, let's consider this, let's keep trying on how to get the communication paths down is reasonable. So I'm in favor of it.
I agree, and I think town staff, for everything that you said already, town staff is the more appropriate because they know the full dynamic of the town. And they're not trying to sell us, they're just trying to inform us.
Good point. And if we don't have the expertise and knowledge on certain things, I'm certain that other committees don't either, so it would be very helpful for other committees as well. Sean?
Sure.
I absolutely understand where you're coming from, and I am very happy to convey as part of my report that, we need to do a better job of briefing our advisory committees when we ask them. I'm happy to take it to the board and say, they met with Louisville, and Louisville said that they actually have the developers come in and present to them. This is something that OSAC would like considered. If not, we need to have a high-quality presentation made to them by town staff.
Are you okay if we make a recommendation?
I am fine with that,
With
but
that
I'm just saying.
same really last statement
Yeah.
that you said, high quality presentation?
Yeah.
To either OSAC or OSAC and all
Yeah,
committees?
and I think you could make your recommendation that it's either to the developer or a detailed recommendation from town planning staff or other staff determined by the town manager, because I don't want to tell Matt what decision he makes. But we will have a new parks director, and she will probably be a little bit overwhelmed at first. But I fully believe she'll figure it out in about 20 minutes, so.
When does that person start?
December 5th, I think,
Nice.
something like that, December 2nd.
She experienced.
She is. She's got a great background.
Can we, let's wordsmith the recommendation.
Yeah, I'm
please.
working on that.
Okay. So it'll take me another 20 minutes. Get it all in.
What is this system?
Needs to be noted.
Okay, OSAC recommends the town committees receive a presentation on any development proposals from either the developer or town staff. I mean, do we want to leave it general?
Yeah.
From an expert such as the developer or town staff?
I'm good with that. So I think we have a lot of room to improve on this process, so.
Yes.
Yeah, this is more just a reminder that the process, we need to keep thinking about the process is really all we're trying to convey to the
Can we
board.
add something at the end there in order for for OSAC to effectively opine on such proposals?
Yeah, and I'm specifically not saying OSAC, I'm
Right.
saying town committees.
Yeah, in order for town committees to effectively provide.
Either by either developer or town staff to be able to provide a,
Meaningful input or meaningful,
provide, it's meaningful,
or
I mean,
educated,
yeah, better educate, I like
better
better
educated
educated recommendations.
recommendations, yeah. Better educated recommendations. There's an old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so here's what I have. OSAC recommends the town committees receive a presentation on any development proposals from an expert, either the developer or town staff, to be able to provide better educated recommendations. It's missing something.
I like in order for OSAC to more effectively,
In order for committees to more effectively.
committees to effectively opine on proposals to the town board. But that's just me.
Well, but the whole point of us is all we can do is make a recommendation. The board doesn't care if we opine, they care about a recommendation. Back to them.
It's like a swale. I'm
Yeah.
educated on
Say the end again?
I said to be able to provide better educated recommendations, maybe better educated, you know,
Better informed
to
and
provide
educated.
better, I mean, we're asking for time. We're asking for a presentation and time to provide a well-formed recommendation. Maybe
To be better informed. And we're asking for someone to explain it to us so we can make a recommendation.
To further educate committees on upcoming proposals.
say that.
To further educate committees on upcoming proposals.
No, we're not educating us there.
How about this? Okay, OSAC recommends the town committees receive a presentation on any development proposals from an expert, either the developer or town staff, to enable thoughtful and well-formulated recommendations from those committees.
Perfect. In a timely manner too. I think
Yeah, I
being
think-
rushed at the last second is, should we put something in there?
So that's the nature of the beast, right? That's the problem. You know, everything is timing. You know, it comes in when it comes in. We get what we get when we get it, and we do the best we can. What Sandy's saying is staff doesn't always have the time to put something together to present to us or to all the committees. That's a lot of time. We have to make decisions based on that. I think it's great that we're putting a recommendation together and formalizing it, but, you know, we've been trying to do this for years, right?
Oh, I know.
And this is just a repeat. So I don't expect a lot out of this. It's good as a reminder, but I think we just need to move on.
I think it backs
Let's-
up, if Sandy's going to say something at the meeting, it
Right.
just backs it
Yep,
up.
exactly. I mean,
that's
everyone's
all
supposed to
we
look at the
can do.
comments and the recommendations, and that's great, but
Yep.
again,
Yeah, I mean, we really,
we just-
I agree
Oh,
with
we can do
Sean.
a try.
We have a lot to get through with our work plan.
I think that's great. So
okay.
Let's
Yeah,
finish it
so-
and move on.
So, let me read it one more time. OSAC recommends the town committees receive a presentation on any development proposals from an expert, either the developer or town staff, to enable thoughtful and well-formed recommendations from those committees. Does someone recommend?
I would like to make a motion to put forward that recommendation to the town board.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. And I need to get online here to send this to Kate. But let's move on while I'm doing that. The next topic
Wait,
was, we can't move on? You need it to be done?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on.
Who seconded it? Sorry.
Sean?
I
Then you?
Yep.
It's, we need it in here.
Where's that?
That's
Okay,
because
I just sent it.
Get rid of that. Because we're still, did you save the?
Maybe.
You guys having fun back there? I think they're all asleep. Everyone's looking at their iPhone.
Oh, this was the item that we added.
Yes.
Did you get that?
It is,
I can show you my computer where I typed it if you want to just type it.
process for. We can always change it and then. See what you say better. Like that.
And then I can go get
Yes.
where.
And then remember.
Yeah.
Sorry. Almost there.
I'm thinking send you the. Oh, there it is.
We could do
We're like,
like
we're
an
so close.
update
We got it, we're almost there.
while we're doing this.
I'm happy to
Everything
start
moves
talking about
differently,
Shannon
I'm-
or Orman Roche.
See, they're still working on
Yeah,
there.
they've got them, it's got to get time stamped, so
It's
we
better
can't
than
really jump
weather.
forward because it's got to stamp this with the recording. That's why we can't, but the look-aheads are,
Sorry. It's a different,
Okay, record.
Is the parking lot done yet, or
Saw
are
a
they
car up
working
there
on it?
today.
You
Yeah,
did?
Everything's done.
Everything's done?
I think everything is
I was
in. They put a
amazed.
stop sign in and,
oh, they did, okay.
yep. they put a
Yeah, I
stop
saw
sign.
a car up there.
Do you want me
so-
to do a look ahead?
Not yet.
Okay.
Long.
stop touching things.
Did you drive up
Almost
there?
done.
Okay,
We're just
I don't
chatting
want
about
to.
the,
You don't
Okay.
want to?
I don't want
Record.
to. Not quite yet.
okay.
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 okay, moving on to the remaining budget for the year. So
Thank you.
in the last item, we discussed that we had some money. Allison got back and she looked closer. So we have about $500 to spend. You know, I looked at the one website where we could get the sunscreen and the dog bags. I think we could spend up to that. There were some other things that people were going to go look into though otherwise. So we just need to make a quick decision on how we'd like to ask Allison to spend that money.
We talked about the gifts for
Right.
National Trails Day, like walkie-talkies.
Walkie-talkies, binoculars or something.
Yeah, binoculars,
Last we talked about it, people were going to
GPS.
do research and get pricing.
Yeah.
Peter
So
was
have
doing
people-
research on
Has
that.
anyone done that?
I did, so to get what I would consider high-quality two-way radio was about $50.
Okay.
And have like 30-mile range, I mean, significant.
Oh, wow.
So,
And then the Garmin eTrex 10 GPS is, you know, anywhere from $60 to $90, depending on where you get it from online.
And what did Peter say about binoculars?
I remember I said you could get a decent pair for 50, and he scoffed at that, so I think we're probably closer to 100.
I mean, what makes that, how would you buy that? Would you just go online? Like we'd send you a link and you would purchase it that way? Is that easier or is it better to be physically in a store?
Well, anybody that wants to order anything, I can provide our tax exempt certificate. So if the company will accept it that way.
Does Amazon, do you know?
Amazon,
They will, but you have to be registered.
we have an
wherever the
account
place-
for
yeah,
Amazon.
Yeah.
So we could
So
just send
that-
a link to you.
You could,
Okay.
you could. And then the question, I guess, too, is before we bought sunscreen and other items that are, you know,
This is just to
Bulk,
get ahead
bulky
for
stuff.
next year. So we could choose to go just with the sunscreen and the dog bags this time and then buy those other things with our money.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I think we'd like to just do whatever's easiest,
Mhm.
I think.
we also do Costco, like somebody will take the tax exempt certificate and go to Costco and get like trekking
That was
poles or
almost
whatever.
impossible last
Oh,
time.
really?
They had to give me a new card under the town and like, I think they said only Gladys could purchase and it was a mess when I went to do that for National Trails Day.
Really?
Yeah.
We've never had a problem.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't know
guess
why
they
I
have
had a
new-
problem, but
sorry.
it wasn't easy.
Uninformed person. That's-
Too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how much
It's
could the
something
sunblock and the dog bags cost?
It depends on.
Would you tap out?
We would just go to
Yeah.
we could just say
Cool.
$250 for each and
I say do it.
I mean, I think that makes sense. That also gives us more time to decide as a committee what we want for
Yeah.
Trails Day in June.
But I love the ideas of the GPS and the different things rather than the backpack and the trekking poles, you know,
Something
the
different.
GPS, the walkie-talkie, the binoculars are a great idea,
Do
so,
we lose the money if we don't use it?
yeah.
Say use
Okay.
it or lose it?
I've looked at those links. I will take the action item to send what we want to Allison and just say spend up to X amount and we'll be done.
And I have that account that we bought it in before, so it's
Yeah, the
easy
one
for
you
me
sent
to
me
do.
is the one I looked, and I know for the dog bags, the trick was that we wanted them not to be green.
Yeah.
The problem is whenever you look, you don't get the option for the bag color. That's just not, you get a color for the item, but
Right.
they don't, I looked for a long time trying to find any option. Now, what they say though is that these things are meant to take any standard roll bag as a replacement.
Yeah.
So we could investigate buying, you know, get a few of these in and then figure out what the replacements are and then get those replacements of that color. But when I looked online, they were all black. They
Yeah.
weren't green.
And I
the
think they
main
only
thing
gave us
was-
like 5 in each one or something, like
Oh, really?
hardly any amount.
In those ones,
Yeah.
yeah, they weren't very many like those other ones, so it may warrant some more research, but if you all are okay with me just deciding, so we don't need to bring it back to another meeting,
Please,
Yes.
I'm
Go ahead.
fine to do that.
I trust you'll make a good.
And I understand that we're trying to make not be green because it blends in with the grass,
Yeah.
and just getting something branded with the town.
Perfect, thank
Okay.
you for dedication on the color.
maybe go with fuchsia.
Okay, so we can move on. Okay, we are moving on to evaluating the 2019 outdoor education program. What changes do we want for 2020?
Would you like me to go over?
Please.
Yes. Our
Yes.
this year's. So, we hosted quite a few programs. We had a Coyote Hike in January. We had 11 participants. In February, we had the Winter Wildlife Hike. We had 8 participants. In April, we had the Arbor Day booth, and she spoke with 42 participants. In May, we had the bird hike. There were 10. National Trails Day, Ashley had 38 for her booth. And then for our new prairie dog hike that we came up with last year, we had 7. In August, we had the Nocturnal Flyers, which was the Bats and Owl night hike program that we came up with a couple of years ago. This is our second year running those night hikes. We had 14. And for Jeff and Paige concert at Wildflower, we had about 350 people attend that. And then in October, we had a Coyote Hike, which I don't think the weather was great, but we had 4 people. So a total of about 460 people that participated in our programs. And roughly half were first timers, which is really super cool.
Yeah.
I always like to hear that. And that half of the people attended 2 or more programs, not necessarily in just this year. And everybody was really happy with the programs.
I know we ask this every year, but how does Jeff and Paige always end up coming out of that fund?
Coming out of what fund? The open space fund?
Yeah,
Because it's outdoor education.
okay,
It's a
But it comes out, it
concert-based.
doesn't come out of the open space fund, it comes out of our budget, our 5,000 budget.
thank you, sorry.
Or does it actually get paid for out of the open space
No,
tax?
there was a lot of discussion when OSAC, when all the committees ended up just having their $5,000 a year. And because National Trails Day was such a large event that OSAC came out of, specifically OSAC's $5,000, that Jeff and Paige couldn't be afforded out of that small amount. So that's kind of how that progressed.
So it does come out of the fund, or any extra comes out of the open space fund, is that right?
For Jeff and Paige, correct.
And how much is it?
For Jeff and Paige?
We talk about it every time.
Does that include or not include the ice cream too? Are we still doing that?
They did it this year.
Oh, we are. We had soccer practice before.
Yeah,
and
it
the
was-
kids were lined up before and they didn't quite open up, so we had to leave. But
So because there was a lot of discussion around where that would come from a couple of years ago, those things did not come out of OSAC's specific.
And that'll be the case going forward, I assume.
I mean, it's a small amount compared to the open space fund.
I thought Jeff and Paige was like $1,500 or something.
I think it's like, I can look it up. I think it's like 1,000.
Yeah, I think it was 500 for a lot of years, and then it doubled to
And then
1,000.
Then the ice cream is probably
Yeah, I was gonna say,
about
I think it's-
$350.
I was gonna say, I think it's over $1,000. It's not,
Yeah. Well, but I mean with the ice cream.
yeah.
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 I don't know. I'm never a proponent of paying for that out of open space funds, but cheese may stand alone.
No, I
It
agree.
was a-
I just, for $1,000, I don't know if it's worth the effort to lobby to do it another way.
Mm.
You know, while I agree,
I think originally it was an OSAC recommendation, and it was part of outdoor education efforts for the community that came out of our community, so.
I mean, it's
that's
obviously
what
the
it was.
biggest attended
Yeah.
outdoor thing that we do.
Yeah.
It is, and I mean, the routine has a lot of outdoor aspects. I mean, I went to it this year with my daughter, and she loved it. I mean, I agree, Tracy, I'd rather see it funded just from some other source.
We had to switch
But-
it because she.
It is absolutely like 90% of our attendance, right? I mean,
Well, it gets our name out there, at least, doesn't it?
I don't know, does it?
Does it?
I honestly didn't even realize when we went to it this year that it was one of our programs.
I probably didn't know till the second year into this that we were, that was related to open space.
Maybe we need to push that more, that we're sponsoring it.
I don't know. I mean, what does getting our name out mean? I mean, what would it achieve?
If it really is open space related education, I think that's valuable. But I don't attend, but I've looked at their music and it doesn't seem very open space to me.
Well, it's a lot of it's about like burrows and where animals live,
Animals.
and so.
I mean, I'm on this committee because of animals, not because of land. So I do think of open
Okay.
space and
Then,
animals.
Yeah, if you think it pertains.
But I just think we should get some credit for it. I mean, so people know we're here.
And typically it's advertised along with all of the other outdoor educational programs in our marketing and in our guides, our rec guides and everything. So all of these types of programs are put together so that it's relatable.
Are our numbers kind of the same like they've been for the past few years, or do you see any?
That seems about right.
They're about
I mean,
the
it just
same.
seems like the
About the
outdoor,
same,
the
yeah.
hikes hit about 10.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it seems low, but when you do 5 or 6 of them and it gets people out,
But night hike seemed to have a good
and
number.
I think it can be really weather dependent too, right? We had a
Well,
really cold
January,
October.
February, yeah.
I mean, my view on this is that I don't go to them all, so it's hard for me to say what I think is good and what isn't. I think Ashley
I
really is the expert on
I want
what
to go
she
on the
thinks is
Coyote
important.
one. I keep wanting to go, but
But I just think deferring, I mean, if you guys have strong opinions on something we should drop or add, I think what we should ask is just Ashley to, if she feels like something should change, then we could change it. Or if she wants to keep the same classes going, then that seems reasonable.
well, maybe we should ask her to see if there's a way to improve it and get, improve attendance, if she has any ideas.
Well, it's really interesting. So I typically meet with Ashley. So this is kind of how the process has worked in the past, is that we have our meeting, we talk about the programs for the year, and then, like, for example, Prairie Dogs and the Night Hikes came up a couple of years. And so then I meet with Ashley, I talk to them about everything the committee talked about, and we put on new programs or get rid of, like, this year we did not do bug hunt, which was one of the programs, because one year we had 0 attendance, and it used to be one of our really big heavy hitters, but then because it's always on the morning of Chili Fest,
Oh.
typically, but that worked really well because it captured like a different audience on the same day. Anyway, and our biggest one is always Jeff and Paige, and then depending on the weather, we can have really high attendance or not, and if the group thinks of some different things, I mean, we can always work on it. We also had like the Denver Zoo do some stuff, like in 2014, 2013.
When do you finalize the agenda with Ashley? Is it now or is it in the spring?
So we typically start working on it in December.
Okay.
And because our first event, we almost have one event every month is kind of our goal, what it's been in the past. Or we may skip December and then, maybe she'll come to Arbor Day, so we won't have a program for Arbor Day. She'll have a booth, which is outreach and talking about things. So there's a couple months that are different, but we like to try to have some ideas and get working on the schedule as soon as we can.
Yeah, I mean, we have been doing so much with birds, but I know that the bird committee doesn't want to go and point out where all the nests are, right? That's
Right.
sort of and then we also even talked about doing an HHR tour, but that's not town property, so that's not something we really can control. And when that group decided to open that up, that worked out pretty well. I mean, I know on the one I went, there were 20 people or so that went on that tour, and actually, it was pretty cool. But, it seems like that's covered, so I don't have any magic ideas that I think we should do, especially since Ashley's the pro, right? I mean, this is what she does. She seems to have a good pulse for what people want to see.
And we do a lot of research. We look at what other municipalities are doing. We look at, what the zoos are promoting and try to, come up with new stuff or make recommendations to you guys and when we think of some new stuff.
I mean, I always love the stuff that Cameron does, and a lot of people ask about snakes, is this
Yeah.
a rattler, is this a bull snake? And he comes and does the stuff, though, that seems like that's really good, because he's bringing the snakes, instead of going on a hike and looking
Right.
for, evidence of them, you're really getting a hands-on view, so all the things I can think of, I feel like we're covering, so.
Yeah. I mean, other than, just the discussion we had on Jeff Page and does it fit, I mean, I don't see anything else that's glaring to me. I think everything seemed to be kind of median attendance and.
I think the only thing maybe that would be different would be our elk that show up. They showed up
Oh.
last spring.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
And if she has thoughts on that, cool,
That's a
go
great
for
idea.
it. But other than that, right, like, I don't know, it's not changing that much.
Well, the fact that the town had to send something out that says, do not approach the elk. These are wild animals, right? It's something to propose to her, to see what she,
And if that is something, which of the programs would we like to replace? Our lowest attendance was Coyote Hike, but we do have periodic coyote every year that
I think that was
people are
important.
really interested in.
we just
Prairie
defer
dogs.
to Ashley to which
Yeah.
one she doesn't feel like
Prairie
she
dog
wants
is
to do.
next, and then winter wildlife is the third lowest. But I mean, by a couple of numbers,
Yeah.
4, 7, 8.
Yeah.
Wait, I wrote Coyote twice. Are you
I
doing
did
two
too.
coyote hikes?
We do one in January and one in October
She can
typically.
maybe just get rid of that, or one of them, or she can decide, I think. I agree, defer to Ashley.
Maybe October.
Let's recommend that, and if she feels, but keep the latitude to use her input on what you think, I
Yeah,
think is a
definitely.
reasonable approach.
Okay, great.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving on. Discussion, Ormond Roche Trailhead next steps. So, first of all, Tracy, thank you for attending and speaking in our behalf. It was an interesting discussion. We got to Ormond Roche. I think it's grown a lot on me. At first, we thought we weren't going to do names, but the way the names came out, I have 2 daughters, and so it has a little bit more meaning for me just because of that. So, but I think it's cool. So, now that we're past the name, the next step. So I think Allison has some updates on us on just the next steps in terms of the physical construction.
Yeah, we're working on a sign, and I think right now we have temporary striping up there, just so that people kind of get used to the layout, and then as soon as we can get the permanent striping down.
It seems like there's more
fencing.
spots there than the Colton Trailhead when you look at it.
Yes.
I haven't counted, but it looks like, anyway, it's bigger than I thought it was going to be, so it's cool. I think it came out well, and did you guys notice the last minute change where the sidewalk was going to go up the north side of it? And that last pitch they didn't put concrete on was so steep that they moved it to the other side, so I think someone here might have been involved in that, so that was a good decision. But I think it looks really cool. And the gate up there, where it is they're going to have the bike,
It's already
the
in.
mountain bike. Is it in? When
Yeah.
I was up there last, the hole wasn't dug yet.
Yeah, I rode by it today on my way home, and gate with the elevated bike is already in, and like I said, there was one car in the parking lot. I almost
All right.
stopped to take a picture of it to show you guys tonight, but there's one truck, and then like a Bobcat was still kind of on the side, but
Okay.
yeah, looked really done to me.
We have some fencing, a little bit of fencing and a little bit more work, but not too much.
Do you have a date, Allison?
Well,
A
it's,
guesstimate?
I would say hopefully by maybe the end of next week, depending on
Okay,
the
so
fencing
soon.
materials and everything. But then the permanent striping, I'm not sure when that'll go in, just because of weather.
And then, do you know, is there going to be a plan, like opening celebration?
I don't have any information on that
Okay.
yet, but I'm sure if the group, you know, I don't know if you wanted to wait until spring maybe, or, I don't know. It's up to you.
I think when it's done, I think it just would be a good photo op and then get into all the newsletters that it's open. You know, it could be an interesting, could be fun for everyone. I mean, it's been
Yeah.
how many years for this group? I mean, this started before even I got on the committee to purchase that property and get this going. So this is many years in the making. Hate to wait till spring when.
January 2014.
Gosh. Wow.
And that's when it got started. It was voted unanimously June 2014. They approved the purchase. And
That's when I
September
started.
2014, it was zoned as open space. It's a long time.
And we knocked down the building, that was fun.
Yeah.
That was really my favorite.
Were you in there?
So we'll just keep our ears open for when the town wants to do ribbon cutting or whatever.
Should we
they want to
request?
do.
Well, I think we
Or
need
how does
to
that
get
occur?
our sign.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We want, I would assume the group really wanted the sign and that we're
Yeah.
working on that.
Uh-huh.
And it'll probably take a little bit longer than completing the fencing, I think, so.
Okay.
Did we ever get a firm answer on Boulder County's stance on the access? Because I think last time we talked about, we had originally thought that they wanted to shut that down, but then we talked about at least leaving it open with some no parking signs. Do we have a definitive answer on what's going to happen on Third?
It was the, leave the opening for pedestrian access and have the no parking.
Okay.
Like we
Which that makes sense. I can't imagine them
Yeah.
routing the Coal Creek Regional around a roundabout, up along McCaslin, through a trailhead
Yeah.
to get back on the trail. Like that isn't a decision I can
People
see
aren't going to
going
ride
down.
up that hill just to go
No,
over and
no,
drop back
exactly.
down that hill.
There would be an outcry.
It'd be a social
If we-
trail that would pop up.
Yeah. The fence would get snipped and
Yeah.
people would be going through, so.
Okay.
And I remember
Good.
that, right, at our last meeting with Patrick, he said, yeah, they talked about that, but then we realized that, yeah, we got to get people through on the trail over, so. But I assume that will happen soon after. There'll be the no parking signs and that piece of it that'll go into original town. Okay, so then I assume, like, it'll go into the newsletters and whatnot, so we'll probably get questions on that. I'll just be ready to answer.
So the no parking sign will go in? I just want to make sure we're not making assumptions about it. Because we already are getting questions about, we get emails from citizens about what's going to happen with access there to OSAC. So you probably put on them as well.
Oh, really? I've not seen it. Yeah, I
Gladys and
mean,
her neighbors.
who?
Gladys and her neighbors.
Oh, well, the whole premise, I think, from the beginning was to avoid having all the parking.
Right.
Yep.
So that fire truck could get through, and that's why the parking was going to be moved up there. So it was just the parking for parking signs.
Yeah.
Right, I'm just wondering, will there be no parking signs that will go up? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then, longer term for the trailhead, because there was no budget for next year.
Do you mind if I go back, Brian?
no.
Just for like a ribbon cutting or something like that, so probably after you let us know that the sign's made and maybe like at the beginning of December or something? Would that be a reasonable?
I don't have any dates for the sign
Yeah.
being fabricated
Right,
yet.
that
We
really
just
takes
got
months.
the name and our media design person will be working on that.
Okay.
The question
Just wait
is,
to
how
hear.
do we let it be known that we'd like to have that? I mean,
Yeah.
you've heard us, and so you'll talk to people, or do we need to make a recommendation?
Oh, yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a ribbon
Okay.
cutting. I mean, I
Okay.
can't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that
I think we
that
put it
was
in the
one of the
recommendations.
things that you already asked me to do was, you wanted to have the name decided on. You wanted a sign, and then once everything was ready, you wanted to have a ribbon cutting,
Okay.
so.
Yep.
I feel like
That
we
was in a
covered that.
recommendation.
You know,
Oh, okay, we did
Yeah.
that last time?
yeah,
I think it was
It
last
must have
time.
been
It
last
might have
time.
been.
it was
Yeah,
either
it
last
was
time
last
or the time before,
Yeah.
because we
Okay.
definitely, it
Yeah,
must not have
I've
been the
been there.
last one. It must have been 2 before that.
Okay, so I'd say we're covered.
We've done it. I know.
Okay,
I
so-
remember,
Pretty sure we've done it.
I think I was seeing where Ryan
And,
is.
you know, a lot of times we do these unveilings on various things in conjunction with Arbor Day.
Yes.
So, you know, unless we're gonna plant trees up there, it
Right.
might not work. But we usually do try and always do a ribbon cutting or some sort of a festivity event and, you know,
Okay.
the unveiling of the sign. So I'm assuming as soon as we get the sign up.
Okay.
we'll-
Where's
we'll
the
have
sign
it
going?
unveiled.
It's not gonna go where those posts are right now.
There's been some discussion about that, and currently, if you're going into the trailhead, it would be right on your right side, where that bank, where the bank is.
Okay,
Where the
Cool.
sidewalk used to be,
yeah, we're the one sidewalk that got torn
on the
up.
north side.
Yeah,
Where the one.
so it'll be visible from the road.
Okay, just as long as far enough in so when cars are trying to pull out, the sign's not occluding there. Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry I interrupted you, Ryan.
no, that's okay.
Just wanna-
And then, you know, longer term, the things that will be in next year's work plan is now really the amenities for that. Feels like that's all gonna fall into maybe even the post-master planning process.
I mean, depending on where OSAC decides it wants to go.
Well, but I think that ship sort of sailed. We said we don't want open space fund. If it's general fund, I don't think we get to dictate.
I don't think it's sailed. I think we got the verdict from the board that it will not be taken out of general fund this year. So is it something we want to propose again to the board next year to come from general fund? Is it something we want to turf to the post-master plan? Or is it something that, you know, we just want to wait on and see if maybe we don't get any acquisitions and we have a bunch of money in that fund, and then we could use the fund money on, you know, the trailhead. I think there's several
But PostAC is
options.
gonna be involved. This isn't gonna just be an OSAC.
Yeah, it's,
Why do you
item
say that
anymore.
PostAC will be
well, I mean, I had the same
Because
impression that Ryan.
they've already put it in their work plan for next year to work on the trailhead.
Well, why does that make them
Amenities.
involved in the trailhead? Because of their
Well,
desire?
Originally, it
don't
was
get carte
OSAC
blanche
because it was
over the
coming
trailhead.
out of OSAC's fund. That's why PostAC
And it's
wasn't
still
even
not determined
involved.
to come out of anywhere.
What's that?
It's not determined to come out of anywhere right now. It's not coming.
I know, but
we're not doing anything
why
with it.
shouldn't PostAC be involved in this, right? I mean, this isn't buying open space. I mean, this is a park amenity.
So I'm gathering that you think it should, like trustee Hammerling's recommendation, go into the pros master plan and have it evaluated as all other parks and rec, which is
Well,
totally fine.
I don't think we can tell things to go into the post-master plan. The post-master plan will be what it is. I'm just saying, I don't know where it's gonna go next year in terms of who's gonna have the reins to drive what's next. I mean, it should be us because we've done the work to develop this plan over the last 5
Right.
years. But I think we need to get ahead of it with ProStac. Like, I think ProStac has been gracious to not be involved.
Well, I don't understand why ProStac would be involved.
Because,
Because it's part of the Prost master plan. It's parks, recreation, open space, and trails.
Well, I know that that's your opinion, but it's not my opinion. Otherwise, I wouldn't have spent all the time trying to present and get it taken from the general fund. So I think regardless of what individual opinions are, it needs to be an open space opinion on what we do with it next. Is that where it's gonna go? To go into a Parks and Rec evaluation, or do we do nothing with it? Do we
but I
decide that we don't want anything else
We
done
don't
with
make the
it?
decision. That's.
We can make recommendations,
We
of
can make
course.
recommendations.
Which
but
is
the
what we've
pros-
done the whole time about this whole trailhead process.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying.
And I am passionate about it because I spent
I'm
countless
feeling-
hours on
I'm
this
seeing
project.
other things that are coming up where ProStac wants to be involved. That's all I'm raising.
Well, ProStac wants to be involved with everything, so, you know,
I don't think
put
so. I
a
think
lot of
that they were
stock
pretty
in that.
gracious to not be involved in the original
Mm.
planning of this, right? I got no pressure from them saying they wanted input, that they wanted to be involved in the original design and the original amenities list. I mean, did somebody else, did I
No,
miss
that was their
something?
choice. They didn't want to be involved then, but now they want to be involved. And that was only one individual at the ProStack meeting that spoke up. And they did not put it in a line item. They put it in as to monitor town projects and keep an eye out. So it wasn't, we are now going to start working on the Ormond Roche trailhead.
No, I think what they were saying was that it'll be part of the Post Master Plan, and even with Town 15 planning, we said, we don't want to push specific things on this parcel because we don't have a master plan for what we think is the most important thing for the town next. And I think that's where this gets weird for me, is that if the Post Master Plan said that this was 20th on the list, should we even be pursuing it? Because for Town 15, we said, let's defer to the Post Master Plan, but for here, we're not saying the same. So we're saying two different answers for two different projects, and that just doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, I hear your point.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't be involved because we have done the work, right? I mean, the body of work we have is pretty substantial. All I'm saying is we need to figure out what the right next steps are to be involved and to be able to influence where it goes next. And I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. It's like everything else we've done with ranking of trails, ranking of whatever, right? They have what they rank for their stuff. We have our rankings for our stuff, except ours is very open space specific, whereas theirs also includes Parks and Rec. So I think we go through the process next year of ranking again, like we did the first time, of what we feel for this trailhead our amenities should be and how our ideas would be, and they can do their separate recommendations and combine the two between the two teams at some point.
I don't think there's any talk that they're planning on ranking recommendations for this specific project. They're talking about ranking amenities for the whole town.
Okay, well, I'm talking about just for this because that's all we've been involved with, right?
But just to give you some clarity, from the perspective of the board relies on Parks Recreation, Open Space, ProStack, and OSAC. We now have a single master plan, which will be the Prost Master Plan, that will be focusing on the most important amenities for the town as evaluated by our citizens. And we will be leaning on both of you to come together to develop the Prost Master Plan. That's what the board is going to rely on when it comes to general fund funding, is one of the things that the town, the residents of our town, most want to see done. So you need to be an important part of the Prost Master Plan. And if these things are important, they need to go into you. You need to make sure that they're communicated as part of the Prost Master Plan as things that we would implement. Because this is not coming out of Open Space Fund anymore. It's coming out of General Fund. And so we will be competing with all the other parks, recreation, open space projects. And so you certainly are welcome to submit it as a separate proposal. But I can tell you, most of the board is going to be looking at what comes out of the Prost Master Plan and what are the most important things to do for the town of Superior residents in the area of parks, recreation, open space, and trails. If it has to do with acquisition of land, it will come out of the open space budget. At this point in time, based on what we've heard, we are not spending any money out of the open space fund for anything except for acquisition. It's not a policy, but for right now, we just didn't spend any money there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Sandy, at the budget meeting, I didn't hear that as a final determination that it was going to go through the Prost Master Plan process. Because I listened to different trustees, some wanted it taken out of Open Space Fund, some wanted it taken out of General Fund and made a line item in the General Fund, and others like yourself wanted it to go through the Prost process. So I didn't hear that defining.
You know, Tracy, I'm listening to the board as a general rule, and we all want to hear what are the priorities for the residents of the town of Superior. And that's what we're going to be listening for expenditures going forward past this year. For this current year, we are not spending any additional money on this trailhead.
Yep, got it. So if we decided we wanted it taken out of open space fund next year, that would be something that we could recommend to the board. We decided we didn't want anything done with it, we could recommend that to the board. They may choose to do differently, because we don't own it.
I agree. I think that's a good approach, right? Is that right now it's a general fund thing. If we change our mind for whatever reason, we can make a recommendation and see if the board, you know, what the temperature is for that. Yeah. I mean, the thing is we've done so much work, we don't want, you know, the best thing that we have is the output, right? We've got this very well thought out and well-optioned plan, right? Probably more than any other, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know what other amenities have plans, but I think it's a good body of work to move forward on whenever we're looking at what to put in over there. So that, I mean, that shouldn't be discounted as output from all of this effort, right? Even though none of it's being used yet, our hope is that it will in future years. So in the leadership, you know, when we get into the work plan and the leadership meeting, you know, if we ever have a leadership meeting this year, we'll see. But this is a topic I have on is what ProStack's view is on, you know, what they're, you know, when they mention it in their meeting, what are they thinking? You know, is it just a post-master plan thing, or do they want to have some other input into that planning? And just understanding their view of it would be something I wanted to understand because of the comment that was made in the last meeting.
What's the timing of this post-master plan of getting this in place?
Next year.
When?
I don't know.
Okay, so nothing's going to happen until that's in place, and no one knows when that's going to happen, so.
Well, but I mean, the plan will have to be finished next year.
End of year, middle of year, first quarter, when do we have input? What do we
It's
do?
budgeted for 2020. At
So
this
anytime.
point, we don't have a Parks and Recreation Director. I'm sure that'll be one of the first projects she'll have, is working with her staff to hire that contractor.
It'll go out to bid.
Have we covered all the next steps on the trailhead? Is there anything else anyone wants to bring up?
No, I mean, long-term, it'd be nice to continue on longer term to flip the Coal Creek Regional Trail to the other side of the fence and close off that third Ave exit so that everything goes to the Shan property. If we are in fact going to make this a full upper, lower amenity trailhead with creating a loop in the process and exercise and stairs and whatever else, it'd be best to have everything going through that property rather than having two entry spots, because part of the reason we have a trailhead is to close down extra entry points.
hold on.
And it's not going to kill anybody to walk a couple hundred yards to Shan to get to the rail. They're not going up the hill, they're staying on the rail bed, getting
The
down.
last we talked about the Coal Creek Regional was a bridge over
No,
into the
no.
Rogers Farm, up over that way.
No, I'm talking about, that's sure, but the point is like, yeah, so again, we're trying to build Shan as a kind of a crown jewel trailhead, right? We want everything to go through there. We would like to see these amenities, and again, it strengthens our case for having amenities on a lower section if we have the regional trail also going through there, as opposed to people avoiding it, right? And we'll get people using the amenities if we're going to have more amenities there, right? That's a big if. But if we do, it would be good to have the lower section, ADA compliant, all that stuff, going through the lower part of the Shan.
But I don't even know what you're asking for here. How? People can ride their bikes to Original Town right now, and we can't stop them from doing that to get to the trail, to continue on the Coal Creek Regional Trail.
I'm talking about centralizing all entry points in Shan. That's what I'm
Well,
saying.
but what does that mean? Centralizing all access points to Shan. That I don't even.
What don't you understand?
There is the only access point to Shan that's approved is the top.
Mhm.
So what are you suggesting?
This is the regional trail. I'm saying flip it to the other side of the fence. That's all I'm saying.
But
Again,
people don't come up that way. They come up through the original. What we're asking Boulder County is to put a bridge over so you go through Rogers Farm to come up to that trailhead. You won't even go over by where that little
Okay.
zigzag is down.
All right.
Right, I don't think we should be sending pedestrians through the roundabout to get over to.
I'm not saying that either.
No.
But that's how you get there now.
I think what Sean's talking about is, like, from where the current gate is now,
Yeah.
on Third Ave, to McCaslin, there's a soft surface trail that runs just to the south of that road, right? I think he's saying reroute that trail to the other side of the fence so that the regional trail comes through.
You're saying put the gate over there, move the gate from where it is in original town more into Shan.
I think close the gate off and
Close it
put the
off.
trail to where it runs on the south side of the current fence.
Put it on the open space
And then
side.
comes out somewhere where that emergency access switchback is. Is
Correct.
that correct?
And
Yep,
just
right.
as
That's
a,
not what we talked about with where the Coal Creek Regional Trail would even go though. Like that's conflicting with how we thought about the regional trail. Remember we talked about there would be a connector through that main street in Rogers Farm
Yeah.
with a bridge over. So you'd come over there, take a left, make a U-turn and go back right? Is that?
just a quick thing to note, when we did have the flooding, that emergency access road was used quite heavily to get traffic out of original town. So I don't know if moving that soft surface trail to the other side of the fence, that's just something to think about.
What do you mean?
Well, we can
What would that do?
continue to discuss this. We don't have to decide this.
Traffic wouldn't be able to go.
But go look at that. If
To
you
get
try
out
to
of
put that trail
original
on the other
town
side of the
that way,
fence,
like
there's a
that.
tree and there's a whole bunch of dirt and a shed that has to be torn down.
No.
I've
You
looked at
know,
it.
you know where the
Because that's
driveway
a
is?
road, it's not just a trail.
The Shan driveway, so you're on the rail bed,
The road that's
and you go
outside of
into the
fence,
driveway,
it's a
like you're coming from
soft
Orangetown, you go into the
surface,
driveway,
hard width road.
and then
that was used
just
during
past,
flooding.
the tree's on the one side,
Yeah.
right? And then just
So I
past
thought
that,
they
and there's
were
like a
saying they
little
would
ditch
put
or
that
some
road
kind of entrenchment.
inside the
You could
fence,
put,
like vehicles.
that's where you would reroute the trail,
Yeah.
just again, on the other side of the fence. I can look at it, I mean, I can look at it right now.
Well, we really need to get through the work plan.
So go for it.
So let's move on to the work plan. Some people have a really early morning tomorrow, so I'm trying to make sure
It's
we
okay, don't worry.
stay on point, but we can keep discussing that. I've looked at, I know we've talked about moving it over there and I've looked at it. I can't conceptualize where it would go
Okay,
because of the tree and because of the dirt that would have to be moved over there.
all right.
Okay, work plan. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I don't even know how we start on this. When I read this, there were a lot of awesome ideas in here. I don't know if we want to go through each quarter and try to figure this out. Do we want to try to identify the big items that we know that we need to do and then try to weed things out off of that? Like, for example, the Post Master Plan, we have it pretty low in our standing updates that we would work on it if it came up. I don't know if we could put it in a specific quarter yet, but I mean, we need to be realistic that that could be actually a fair amount of work for us next year, where it was zero work in the previous years. So I just wanted to open up with that.
On that topic, I agree that it could be significant, but not knowing when it goes out to bid, when it comes back, when it's appointed, I think it almost has to be in an ongoing.
Oh, sure.
state, right?
My only point of that, though, is when we consider adding other things,
Yeah.
let's remember that we're adding a pretty big one, right? Not so much where it goes,
Yeah.
but just what work we're signing up for.
Agreed, yeah. I would say it's a relatively safe bet that it's not going to be done to where we're interacting in the first quarter, though, right? I mean,
Maybe, I don't know,
the
right?
Parks Director starts in December with, go out to bid through the holiday.
No, we'll keep it on. All I was proposing is we put it to the top of our, or maybe the second to the top of our ongoing, like we try to rank
Sure.
order those.
Yeah,
But more just to consider, like, there's a fair bit of new stuff on here that we need to really decide if we're gonna have enough time to work on, right? I mean, this first quarter, obviously, is, there's just no way, right? There's no way, this is 2 quarters worth of material.
I think that's what we have to start with, just going through each quarter
Okay,
and identifying
so,
if there's stuff. we
yeah,
want
let's
to
just
take
go
off.
through this then. And I guess I will just make notes in this version, and we will go at it that way. Reevaluate marketing for community outreach. Was this in our original work plan?
No.
Like, do you know why it was marked yellow? Does anyone have the original?
I think this was a new.
It was new.
This was the newest that was in the email that I just put into.
Oh, no, sure, but why was this one marked yellow? Because I remember we always looked at this at the beginning of the year.
No,
But-
well, we talked at the last meeting, who remembers, about doing a new marketing process.
That was me. And so 8, priority 8 was always in.
Yeah, there it is,
Number
okay.
2, or priority 2, is a new one completely. And it could be that very well that they get merged. The thought on the reevaluating marketing for community outreach events has to do with the fact that, like, going to some of the CAPS things that have been going on this year, they have very high attendance, but they also have very specific marketing that goes out. And I was just, when we were talking about Jeff and Paige, I searched my email, and I did actually have a thing out, but I don't know that I get separate emails for each of the Ashley things that we are promoting. And so that was kind of my thought was, is there a way to, or get mailers out or whatever, to get more specific marketing to help increase our participation?
And so in the past, we've typically treated our outdoor education programs, especially like our night hikes and stuff like that, not specifically Jeff and Paige, but just like a recreation program. So they go in our rec guides, they go in our monthly newsletters. If we have really low attendance and we're worried, because we have a limited amount of people that can come to like Ashley specific programs, maybe up to 30, just because she's a person talking and walking outside.
Right.
If there's more than maybe say 30 people, it's too many for her. So if we have low attendance signups for one of her smaller programs, then we'll send out a special. But if we feel like, oh, we have 30 people signed up already, then we don't want to continue to e-blast it out, because then people will come to try to sign up and then they can't.
Right.
And then, Jeff and Paige, we usually send out some standalone e-blast. It's in the rec guide, and it's in like our newsletter. So like just to keep in mind, some of them are a little bit different from others. So, and capacity-wise, they're different.
Okay, and that makes sense. So we didn't have that context when we added it last week or last month. So
Yeah.
that's helpful.
Yeah. And I mean, I can answer all kinds of questions like that. And also, Trustee Lish, when he was on our committee, he would also put out a CAC sometimes if we had low attendance or it was something special.
Oh, yeah, I hate doing that.
But I mean, our numbers are great. Like, I don't want you to feel, that our programs aren't doing just as well as they have before. I mean, Jeff and Paige, I think at the most we ever had was like right around 400-ish. And I mean, we're at like 350, so we're still really up there. And I mean, I'm sure a couple might have slipped through the tally, but that's a lot of people.
But I think Kate's point is good though, especially
Yeah, I
for
do too.
like the National Day of Service, right? We know attendance is low. Like, should we just be rethinking how we market these things?
Oh, and we put them all on Facebook
Mhm.
and a bunch of the social media too. I forgot to mention.
I mean, we could actually, we don't do any of the, well, see, this would have to be a Q1 thing. I think having a discussion about should we do a little bit of research and should we make some recommendation on changing the marketing is a reasonable task. So I'd like to I think we should leave this. But let's just see where we end up. I propose making one ProStack leadership meeting topic and not two. I realize this was just to collect up ideas. We have buy-in from ProStack that we need to have a meeting early in the year to get the trails map aligned before we start voting rather than while we're voting. But also to talk about common interests from the year like the PROS master plan and all of that. So I think I do think this needs to be in here. I just think it needs to be one for ProStack. don't know if we can even put this in a certain quarter. I mean, we could just have this be ongoing. Or do you see some specific point in time next year that we need to talk about it?
Yes, before I get off OSAC.
Right, but
So
I
first
mean,
or second quarter.
okay, can we move this to second quarter?
Of course.
Are you maxing out?
Tracy?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we had this in the work, did we have this in our work plan last year on the properties? I mean, I think we did.
I think we did.
I think the comment here that's changed is that we said if we weren't adding new members, that maybe we wouldn't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So we reviewed them all again this year, right?
We did.
Yep.
So just put a pause on it.
Yeah,
But
it's
we will have new members though.
Yeah, the board's got one
Right.
Yeah,
approval.
there's one approved and there'll be, I mean, there should be more.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not done yet, right? So we'll be starting, you know, pretty quickly again. How about we move this, like Q3 is light.
Sure. We could do that.
So how about we move this to Q3?
Mhm.
I'm pondering the Shan Shan or Orman Roche thing again. If anything actually does happen and Sean wants to be involved, we move it to second quarter, Sean's not going to be able to be involved because he'll be gone.
I thought you were gone at the end of
Q3
second quarter.
Yeah.
I thought it was June.
Yeah, I go end of June, so July 1st, I'm not on anymore.
Right,
That's
so say we do
Q3.
something April, May, I mean, I have no idea what that would actually be.
I'm on for Q1 and
But
Q2.
already, we have 2 quarters worth in this first quarter.
Sure, yeah, I
right?
know what you're saying. It's just
We
something to
have,
think about.
um,
If you think it's cool, Sean, then let's do
Yeah,
that.
no, Q2 is fine.
Okay, great. Sorry to interrupt.
where's the strike through?
They don't have strike throughs, you have to right click and then click on format cell and,
Never mind.
yeah.
Just color it red or something.
Yeah, I like that, Joel, thank you. I want it.
There you go.
It's just, it's fuzzy. Anyway, National Trails Day event, obviously, we want to do that again. Review 2020 budget line items and fund balances. This one is always vague to me because we just reviewed the 2020 budget lines, right, just in this meeting. I think that it is I think the fund balances are good to review. So what do you guys think about changing this to review fund balances?
Love it.
Because I was looking at this just today, we actually had a really nice chart up on our website, but it's up, the last update was 2017. So, and it was pretty interesting to see how the revenue was changing year over year for the open space fund. And then even in there though, there was some bond repayment schedule that I still don't understand. So it'd be good to fully understand all
Never understood
the financial review fund balances, and other financial impact or financial issues. This one, obviously, right, we're just going to say, what are we going to talk about at our events this year? What signs do we need? What do we want to, what material do we want to have? We get through that pretty quickly. So this one got removed last time, and actually from what it was proposed to not do the dinners anymore. Did that get any legs?
It did, but it wasn't finalized.
Okay.
But our meetings are starting earlier, so it seems difficult
Sure.
that it will happen. So
So
I think it's
let's-
possible. But so you understand why we're doing it, it felt like it was a little bit contrived, that we had you come in sometime during the first of the year. The board wanted it that if you want to talk to us, we want you to come to the board meeting and talk to us about things that you want to do and to talk about it in a timely fashion. Because a lot of times, the things you want to talk about, they aren't a priority in January or February.
Yeah.
So really what we wanted to do, now the other complicating factor in that though is that we're trying to make the board meetings so that things that require decision-making will happen in the front end, and things that are reporting and a little more soft and fuzzy will go in the back end, which means if you wanted to come and just talk, it's probably going to happen in the back end of the meeting. However,
Awesome.
we don't know what's going to happen with the schedule as we move forward with some of these development proposals. We just happen to be in a mess right now because of the development proposals. But, you know, we will be stopping the meetings at 11 o'clock unless there's something really, really good. And because it is the only way the meeting extends is with a unanimous vote. And I turn into a pumpkin at 11 o'clock. So it's going to be pretty unlikely that we're going to extend. And Laura and I are both of the opinion we're just not effective after 11 o'clock. But, you know, in about half the committees, and this certainly is not the case with OSAC, we didn't feel like we were accomplishing as much as we did if we had more dynamic meetings when we needed to have meetings with you. But it was not finalized, but right now, I think they probably won't happen.
Will public comment then be at the end of the meetings? Do you think?
Public comment would still be at the beginning of the meeting, but we won't discuss public comment, and of course, we will be encouraging people that if they have public comment related to any sort of a decision, that they actually comment when that decision comes up on the agenda.
So we'll remove that since it was removed last time, and sounds like it's, you know, it could change, but we'll remove it. So this one, Tracy, my only comment here is this goes along with the properties, but not really. I mean, it needs to be included in that, but we did this in Q3 this year, or Q4. I mean, you just got this from Matt, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks
So
ago.
I absolutely, like, this is a fantastic idea. This data is awesome. I don't care if we keep it in Q1 because it's a reach out to the town manager. But since we did it in Q3, should we move it and Q3 is lighter for us?
Yeah, that's
Is
fine.
that,
Sounds good.
does that work?
Yep.
Okay.
And he'd probably appreciate that better anyway.
What's that?
He would probably appreciate that more anyway, to circle back, you know, I can have a
Okay.
set time every year.
Okay, research Boulder County encouragement opportunities.
I have no idea what this means.
My guess
I
is
don't
this
remember
was,
this.
no, my guess
To be
is this is
honest.
Peter wanting to reach out more to Boulder County.
It was, Peter was gonna do all of that, but it comes always from the flora and fauna that we've had on there, the antelope, the
Yeah,
black
I mean,
bear,
it's
you know.
ongoing, right?
Yeah.
It's,
Oh.
I thought,
We moved it, but Peter had specific ideas that he mentioned at the last meeting, and I have no idea what those
and now
were.
that he's not here, I just,
I might have something.
Yeah, he said.
that he-
well, hold on, but regardless of that, are we, I have a tough time seeing how we're gonna do all this without
Right.
Peter or Vanessa
Right.
or someone like that on our board. Putting it on here means we need to work on it.
Mhm.
I think
I
we should
understand.
go back to more of a generic, encouragement. Pursue regional collaboration.
So Peter said for line 13 and 15, the idea was to discuss with pro staff, starting with Matt Rarick, to see if we could work together on any projects that could involve residents and volunteer open space stewardship projects. Some of the initial ideas were working on improving some of the existing pollinator garden plots, doing weed removal in the area of Riverbend Park, or training residents to be able to recognize early signs of problems on open space, new weed patches, et cetera, and report them.
That sounds like a great, Ashley.
I have a quick note on that. So we have put pollinator beds in this year. What else? Boy Scouts have done projects for like milkweed, for the monarch population. So there have always been ongoing different types of projects like that. It hasn't always involved OSAC, only because some members, like we could get members that are hyper interested in certain areas, and they are great to help do volunteer. We've also had weed mitigation in Riverbend Park. That was a volunteer-led program. So it just depends on, you know, do we have a member that's heavily invested or knows a lot or has a lot of information about a topic like the Raptor program with Vanessa and Peter. And B, you know, there could be outside groups and volunteers that are already doing certain projects that have kind of gone through, Eagle Scout projects or Boy Scout projects and things like that that go directly through our superintendent staff. So just so you're aware that there are always those type of things, even if we don't have a member that's really interested, so to head it.
So that's what I meant by that.
Okay.
That's-
My recommendation, or my thought on this is that without someone here driving the agenda,
Mhm.
specific things like this are going to be hard, and we should add something generic about wanting to do this, and as ideas come up, being able to react to them. Along those lines, though, well, it kind of solves a lot of these, but one of the thoughts I had is that I think we could probably still maintain some relationship with Vanessa and Peter and the other volunteers that are interested in birds in the town. I mean, I'm trying to think about what's the angle with OSAC. Our angle is that we want to encourage wildlife within the community. We've got this separate organization that is taking it upon themselves to do this, and I don't know what we offer to them, except for maybe having a way to have a repository of the documents and getting the documents out to the rest of the public. And so I do think one thing we need to keep on here is how to maintain our Raptor and HHR, our reservoir monitoring program. And so I think, in terms of wildlife encouragement, that's something we can do, something that I think is actionable. But I think that kind of I think to me what that means is this. I think we know that Autry is private, but we would merge this into a raptor / breeding bird, volunteer program or something like that. And like Kate was saying, we can even get things into the town mailers when they need volunteers or they need people. Like we can use those kind of outreach to get people involved.
And we love the stories in the newsletters with the pictures. We thought that was great because it made it more fun, and it was like a story about the owlets in the park. And I thought it was really attractive as far as, something
I was
interesting
going to ask,
to
is
have in
that
our
going to
newsletter.
stop now? Or are they going to do it voluntarily?
I mean, we can reach out to them and ask them if they would continue
Probably
providing
them
that
and
to
Kathy,
staff.
too, 'cause
It doesn't have to be part of OSAC to be for them,
Right.
right?
Well, I asked
Well, that's the thing.
Peter that specific question, what was going
Yeah,
to happen with
he
the
said he'd be
program.
happy to continue contributing at that time when we asked him.
Yeah, I mean, I said like pro versus con, what would be good to keep it as volunteers or integrate with the town? And he had a bunch of thoughts like the data repository and the media and help recruit volunteers.
And
But that it
we
would
did
take
that.
work, it would
Yeah.
take work on all of our part in order to keep all of that going.
Yeah, he would just,
That's really what
they would
it's
write it up, give me pictures, and maybe have a, hey, we need volunteers, and then we would tweak it more into like town language or marketing, just
Okay.
here and there, a little bit of tweaking, and then we would send it out through our channels
Okay.
for volunteers.
Sounds like something we could.
So we're going to kind of combine all of that, right, into keeping that going, the bird, all the bird stuff, whatever we want to call that. Sorry, I'm tired and it's been a long day, so.
I understand.
Okay, so that's Q1. I mean, I think Q1 looks reasonable. It's going to be a lot, but a lot of this are quicker discussions rather than, a lot of heavy lifting, so I think that we're good. 2, develop budget recommendations. I mean, normally we make these recommendations much later, but I like having it earlier just because as it can, it can slip into third quarter pretty easily. So I like having it here. Revisit previously. Does anyone know? Is this just rewording the BOCO? Because, I mean, that came in
Yeah, I thought it was just
Q4.
communicating with BOCO.
So this is real, but I mean, this time we did this in Q4,
For Sean.
right? We just finished that
What is that?
today, right?
What is that?
Send off.
And this is the latest news we have on when Boulder will be asking for this, so, I mean,
I feel like we talked about this
I
last
think we
time.
can save time by taking the party for Sean out.
well, no, but I mean, but this is what we just made a
Yeah,
recommendation
I
tonight
know,
about.
but I thought we talked about something else regarding this last month. No one remembers, so it must not be too.
Well, last month we did the initial discussion. Last month was when we got it back, but it was still in Q4.
Regarding the work plan, I thought that this was not related to, I thought it was trying to reach out to Boulder County regarding open space acquisition funding, not related to that, but I
I
wasn't
remember
me,
that,
so
I don't remember that,
details.
but then I also
What do you-
don't really remember this.
Okay, so,
I remember nothing.
Well,
all
so,
right, then it must not be that important.
so what do we do with this?
I think, yeah, fourth is fine.
Does it make sense to anyone?
Okay,
Sean,
well,
did you take notes last time?
Did I?
I think it was a mix, it was a mishmash.
annual
I think
update
I-
of trail,
you and
we can
Peter-
come back to that
Peter
when
and
Sean
Sal.
looks. Annual update of trails priorities plan, and this is the trail ranking? It must be.
Mhm.
Arbor Day, okay, yes, I mean, we definitely will have a party for Sean, but I can't put it in the work plan. I mean, this one is, that one's hard for me because I absolutely think we should be tracking this. I just don't know if they would even take, I mean, I don't know why they would want to talk to us about this.
I think they did want to talk to us
Yeah.
about it because of the whole idea of that property being directly adjacent to Monarch, which means kids
Yeah.
trying to get to Monarch safely. And
Can-
that could
Okay.
dramatically change how things
So it
work
was
for our
more
kids.
regional connectivity
Yeah, 88th
opportunities through the ConocoPhillips
Yes.
Yeah.
But, I
plan.
mean, I definitely got the impression when we met with them that they were interested in what
Yeah.
we saw from
Can-
their side.
But I don't want to put this in a quarter. I mean, what if the plan gets mostly wrapped up in Q1? I think this should be a standing thing, and I think this is the kind of thing we need to assign to one person in our assignment of tasks at
Okay,
the
good
beginning
point.
of the year. So, and then National Day of Service,
We've never had, well, it wasn't on our work plan, which explains
I know.
why so last minute we don't.
where I'm getting concerned is it's gonna, this is just gonna be more work, right? We're not cutting much from our plan, but we're adding big things. And this is actually adding a fairly chunky thing to our work plan. I'm not saying I don't want to do it, I just don't know how we're gonna get it all done.
Are you thinking something more than just like the trash pickup that we did
No, it's the promotion.
a couple years ago?
We just want to do the trash pickup, but what we had 6 people sign up or 5
Yeah.
people sign up. It needs more marketing. We need to be pushing it, right? Promoting to schools, youth, like someone's going to have to come up with a
Yeah.
plan and do the reach out.
But
right?
no other projects, just that project?
No, just that plan. I think it's a great, I mean, if we went, if you got these things big, you see other communities that do it and then they have a barbecue, right?
I think I think that might be a linchpin, is like a spark. Like,
Yeah.
what else is it? Like, do we have a barbecue? I love that. I think that's a great idea.
And I would really like to take that on. If you want to put Kate's name in there for
Okay,
signing
cool.
it, that is.
Well, and if someone has a passion for it, by all means, like, I actually really think this is something that is very much, what we do. Let's keep the open space clean, right? It's interesting, well, I'm not. gonna
It's
go
hard
on
to,
this
because
side.
people's weekends are so,
Right.
so
It
busy.
sneaks up on me
We
every
have
year.
something every weekend.
But could we combine it with National Trails Day?
Yeah, I was.
Could you have
Took the words out of
people
my
do it, and then at the end of National Trails Day, everyone who brings in a bag of trash gets to come to the barbecue or something like that? I mean, we could, so let's leave it on here. Let's
No,
put
so
this,
Usually first or second Sunday in June.
let's leave, should we put it in Q1 when we start talking about National Trails Day?
National Weekend of Service is like a national thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we wanted
Name it.
to, if you want to move it, just so you know that that's kind of where it came
Yeah.
from.
I
Yeah.
know, and it works out because you see other people doing it and whatnot. It's given us a spark, but if we could combine it some other
Yeah.
way with something that would get more people engaged, it's worth a try. And then on National Day of Service, we could put a bunch of pictures up and say, hey, remember when we collected all this trash and what we did? Or, I don't know, or go back and check those areas again and see what you find or something like that. I don't know. Okay, cool.
Earth Day is the 22nd.
Okay, third quarter, have a presence at COSA. If you haven't been, I highly recommend you go.
Aren't you going?
I went. I'll give you an update later. It was in September or October. That was awesome. 4th of July, open space budget, line item. So here we are again with review open space related budget line items. I always get stuck on this one when I work on the work plan because I don't know what it means. Does it mean that we go back and look at,
Isn't that the same as what we had up above? Develop
Well, we
20
said-
budget recommendations?
Go back down, it's right.
Q2, 20, line 20?
yeah, we had one up,
I think we moved
I
it.
think we moved it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is just to,
What's coming out of the fund? Really, that's how I see
Mm-hmm.
it.
review open space. But aren't we, I mean, we kind of just did that tonight for 2020.
Yeah, presuming there's nothing else coming out of it, but we didn't get costs, exactly. So it would be getting.
Well, but nothing was
finance
coming out
costs.
of the open space, we have like zero out of the open space fund.
Well.
There were
Jeff
other
paid.
things, oh, okay, well, true. I just, whenever this one comes up and I go to ask Allison for something, I don't know what I'm asking her for.
It should.
Well, what ends up happening typically is once the numbers come through from finance, I get like a couple of sentences from finance that are kind of the same every year that talks about the funds, and that's what I go over at that time.
But the budget wasn't done by this point. Or this was actually for the 2020.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong. Oh, no, related to the 20, yeah, so it would be in,
I see, we just put this in the third quarter because the first two
it's
quarters
what's
were
been
busy.
spent.
Okay.
It's like,
Okay.
kind of
That's
what's
fine.
happening with those balances.
It's just a check-in on the budget.
Yes. And finance gives that information to me, and then I just go over it. And sometimes the group asks for it too early, where I don't have that information, and then it takes me.
So when we say open space related, do we actually mean from the open space fund? Is it specific to that, or does it need, or is
That's
it
what
our
we get,
$5,000?
And the open space fund.
Yeah.
It's, well, our 5,000 is not open space fund.
Right.
General.
But that's all we have, that
Yes.
$5,000 and then the fund.
Okay. Yeah, but see, look at the received presentation from town
Yeah.
staff on open space related budget items and expenses.
Redundant.
Does it make sense for 2 line items there? I mean, it seems like this one is, these are redundant.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'll move OSAC, I'll clean that wording up. Okay, OSSR to incorporate, review, update open space summary. Oh, yeah, this isn't the ranking. This is just the summary report. Oh, wait. No, this is the ranking.
No,
No, this is
it's
the
your
document that,
yeah.
No, that's the continuity document. The OSSRR is when we rank the properties, that's the output of that ranking.
What? I thought the OSSRR was your document that had the rankings in it.
No,
but
that's called the
everything
open space continuity document. And then there's a trails continuity
Oh,
document.
when did that name get-
The OSSRR is what's on the website. That's the official blessed document.
Gotcha, okay.
So this seems, this really is this. I think what this was, do we want to do this again? Do we need to be looking at this again in the next year, right? It has enough changed that warrants, that kind of falls into the work plan though.
I really, really swear that I remember you talking last year that you were gonna review this document annually to make sure that it was up to date and put the newest version online. Did I dream that?
We don't put that document online.
Okay.
The continuity document is our document, and that was a ongoing assigned task.
It was like a Dropbox
But I don't think
document.
that's what this was intended to be. I don't think 36, I think this is the document that we just finished.
The continuity document was the
published.
one that where the group wanted to
Right.
remember
Yes.
all the stuff related to something and like why it dropped
Right.
off or why it
Yep.
didn't, and it didn't want to get
Right.
mixed in with this other one.
That's just an ongoing,
because of that.
that's an ongoing task.
Okay,
Like,
so
as
you're
we
saying
went-
this is not the ongoing one, because that's what I thought it was
This
referring to.
is, I think we thought that we wanted to, the thought process last year was, we just finished the OSSRR. Do we want to, this was our checkpoint of, did we think we were going to do it again? And what we decided this time last year was yes, because we had enough members that were new that it was, and it's the most important thing we do. So yes, we should be going through it. So I think it's fine to leave this. I think we should have a check-in on where we are at properties and make this decision, so.
Okay.
I could go either way on this because the work plan also drives this, right? We could say when we work on the work plan, if we finished our document in December next year, we probably wouldn't, it might be okay to go another year without redoing that analysis, especially if all the available properties are long-term residents and the probability of them moving are low.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this is always a really quick, yeah, not much has changed, let's,
I think we keep it then.
I think so. So, okay. Yeah, that obviously is the number one. Number two is going to be the Post Master Plan, when I move it up there. Curious why this was marked blue. I don't recall.
That was a follow-up.
And I did email with Justin about mineral rights, but I can't really remember what we discussed because I think we were going to talk about addressing mineral rights on all applicable parcels, but it really needs to be targeted just to whatever, and tell me if anyone thinks differently, whatever one we actually have potential for buying, because I think it would be kind of crazy to try to buy the mineral rights underneath when we're not going to get land on top.
I just think that that's
So-
part of acquisition, and I don't know if this belongs as a single
And that,
line item in the work plan.
everything but the parentheses was actually on from last year.
Yeah, and that just came from last year
Right,
because we had
because we had the last
the
minute.
whole scare.
Totally.
And, right,
Right.
I tend to agree with Tracy that when we're looking at a property, we just need to remember that mineral
Yeah.
rights are a big piece of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if
Yeah.
it needs to be a line item in our work plan, because that implies separate work rather than just a piece of the other work.
Yeah, I think it's just a mental note for all of us to
Mhm.
keep that in mind.
And I think that's why it was marked blue. It was like, we knew we had a question about it.
Mineral rights are.
But I just think we can,
Could be
Yeah.
are we comfortable removing it?
Well, I don't know, that's a good point. Like, what if we have total turnover? Should it just be a reminder for future?
Yeah, but
Exactly.
but this isn't a reminder. This is wean, we're supposed to be doing work
Yeah,
on
that's
this.
a good point.
Yeah, that's why I think
Good
it
point.
goes away.
I mean, you know what we should do is
You
we
can
should
put
have,
continuity document.
in the continuity document, we should have a paragraph at the top that says, please remember,
Don't forget.
future members, that when you're looking at any property, that mineral rights are important.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good solution.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, provide input on proposed spending, yeah. Monitor board agendas, yeah. Monitor oil and gas, yeah. We're making a recommendation on this tonight, so I think our input on Rocky Flats has been good. I feel like I could spend another 8 hours a week just learning more about this, but I think the tidbits that people provide are good.
Can we delete oil and gas from that though? Because oil and gas is already 47 and it's at the very end of 49 as well. It's just redundant, like,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, thank you, good call, good catch. Okay, so this one, we talked about this was gonna be our wildlife encouragement. maintain the continuity documents. This will move up. And then this one, I wonder if we shouldn't even, but this one is still an outstanding item.
But isn't that part of the PROS master plan too?
This one was, the board asked us and ProStack to put a combined position paper together. We are still waiting for ProStack. We are in an indefinite hold, is how I will phrase it. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't put this in Q1 and actually make it I mean, this really should be a Q4 this year.
Sandy, did you follow up? You mentioned something.
I've tried and tried and tried. It is in ProStack's hands. I've written to Neil about it. Other than me taking over that committee and
Yeah.
bopping him on the head,
I might pull Corey aside if I see him on Friday and just ask him about it. It's not.
I thought we were making progress,
No, I
and
know.
the last I heard from Neil, Todd was supposed to be trying to run with it, and let me see if I can get Michelle right.
So I think that having Town 15 on our radar, because the board has asked us to provide specific recommendations on that, is good. But we don't know when we'll need to do it. So I actually think maybe just leaving it here is the right answer. Unless other people have suggestions on how we should handle that.
I thought Q1 since it never got done.
What's that?
I thought Q1 since it didn't get done
Well, right now, we don't have an update.
this year.
Right. The
No,
other
the
thing
meeting-
is
the
this
meeting with
folds into, this is in my list of these things.
Yeah, then that's fine if it's on your list there. That's sufficient.
That's more specific.
Mhm.
So let's do that. Because I do feel like this is specific, but it also, I feel like provide input on open space considerations. I mean, this is a larger umbrella statement that would cover this. So,
Yeah, I say take that out there and put it up in Q1 like Tracy was saying,
well,
as part of the
Yeah.
ProStack
okay,
meeting.
okay.
Because we did already do our paper. Really what all
did.
has to be done is with
Well, and
ProStack.
like I said, I mean, the board does have two things to go off of now if someone comes at them for that property. So the ultimate need, I think, is fulfilled. It just, it would be better if we had a joint statement, and we'll just leave it at that, yes. So.
You've tried.
Yeah, I know. We're trying, just so everyone rest assured, we are trying to politely shake this loose. Like I said, I might see those guys on Friday and I might just say, hey, can we meet? And see what they say.
Sounds like a good plan.
Volunteer dinner, don't
Sorry.
forget,
Yeah,
Friday
that's what we're
night.
talking about, the volunteer dinner on
Don't
Friday.
forget.
Right, are we through the work plan? Have we missed anything that anybody really wants to work on? I have one that I'm interested in, but I don't know if I want to put it on here, but it would be to,
Do you want to say it out loud? No, I'm just kidding.
well, what I'd like to build is an open space resource for Superior residents, right? I want to go play in the outdoors. Here's the link to Boulder County's maps. Here's the the Colorado State map. Here's a link to all the trailheads in Superior. Here's where you can go in Jeffco, right? We could, I'd want to do it, but on the other hand, it's a lot of work. And the hard part about something like that is 80% of the work is the maintenance, 20% is the creation. It's the 80% that's the hard part. And I think that I'm signing staff up for work by doing that. And so maybe what I'll do is I could just do that as a side project of my own time. And if I have something that I think is reasonable, I could take it to staff and say, are you interested in this content? And just maybe take it as I don't know if that's ill-advised to do a side project that's not on a work plan, but I'd be doing it on my own time, not OSAC time. I don't know if you can really differentiate that.
The Raptor program was a side project that got
Yeah.
adopted,
just think there's so many good resources out there for people that are new to the area or want to explore the outdoors in different ways that we could help.
And a lot of other towns do that, which I'm sure you saw at COSA. Yeah.
Anyway,
Great idea.
okay, I'm not going to put it on there, but I'll just keep stewing on the idea. And if it goes somewhere, then we can add it next year. How about that? Because I really don't want to add something that we have to do due to the amount of work that we'll have next year.
So, just as a quick note on that, if you go to Parks and Rec and you go to Parks, Trails, and Open Space, and then you click on area trail information and maps, then there's like interactive Bike 36 corridor, there's Boulder County trail information, there's trailhead maps, there's interactive maps.
So we're just not doing it related to the open, yeah, okay. Could you, is that easy for you to send me that link right now? And it'd be a place to start.
Yeah.
And maybe it's already done.
And then because there are these new apps out, we have that Boulder County one that'll be coming out soon, and then that Colorado one. I mean, it would be easy to add those. I mean, because we already have a page for it. And
Yeah.
I mean, if there is more information that would be good information, it would be easy.
The
Because
easy thing to do would be to look at that, and then in our Dropbox, we have all these useful links. We can start a useful link section for
Open space access.
just open space activities or something. So, okay, awesome.
Send it to me.
Thank you. All right, so moving on.
Let's get into updates and look at, thank you all for getting through that. So COSA, COSA was awesome. Like I said, anyone who's been will say that it's awesome. You know, this was in Steamboat, which doesn't suck, you know, right at the Hyatt, right there near the base of the mountain. So I was in heaven. So the few things that I'll tell you that takeaway, one thing I did go to is this Cotrex. It's this new trail map app from the state. So it's like the Boulder areas, but it's meant to be statewide. And it was cool because the big thing they're pushing is they want regional areas to provide updates for closures. So they want it to be accurate. It's funny though, I knew there were like Heil Ranch and Hall Ranch were closed, so I went and looked. It didn't show that they were closed. So they're still working through some of the logistics of how to do it, but when it works, it'll be really cool. And they'll be able to show like this trail's closed, but here's the detour around. But it takes buy-in from all the municipalities to be willing to update all of that. But if you haven't seen it, it's just, I think it's Cotrex. Just search for TREX.
I think it's like Cotrex.org or something.
Yeah, or it's Gov or something like that. But it's a really cool app. So it was just interesting to hear. It was just brainstorming on what do you want to see, and you know, we're really putting a lot of effort into this, so that was cool. It was interesting. They talked about a land deal in Summit, where Summit was going to go in and buy this land, but it was going to take all their open space fund. And the big takeaway I had from this was that they were able to get money from GoCo after the purchase to refund them for the purchase. So it wasn't something they had to have ahead of time. They had some thought that they could get it back, and they were able to get some back after the fact. So I just thought that was an interesting takeaway. It was a cool talk, though, on how they collaborated to get this talk. I got to meet the guy that got attacked by the mountain lion as a trail runner. He came and actually sat next to him at lunch, not even knowing who he was. Then the next meeting, he was up there talking about this attack. It was just fascinating to hear his account of how he was able to basically choke out a mountain lion.
Wasn't that mountain lion sick?
No, it was a juvenile. So the thing that I learned about mountain lions is that the mama kicks the male babies out sooner than the females, and it was just hungry and young, and it just didn't know any better. So it attacked him, and he said, you know, luckily he wasn't running with his earbuds, or he didn't think he would have heard it. So it was a good lesson in terms of being outdoors and not paying attention. But it was just really, I mean, that one was just really cool to meet him.
Colorado celebrity.
There was a demographics keynote about just population in Colorado, and I really want to go find the slides because it was fascinating data.
Colorado's the 8th fastest growing state. But they said the big trend is that most of the population growth is on the I-25 corridor, and actually a lot of the rural areas are decreasing in population. This obviously doesn't surprise anyone, but it was a lot of data to support that. I think they said, the number was like 80,000 people a year were growing. But the interesting thing is that over half of that is not people moving in, it's just new babies outgrowing the deaths within the state.
Wow.
So when you think about, like, people are just living longer, so, you know, when you hear about the population growth, it's not all just people moving in. So I thought that was interesting. Okay, so cool thing on prairie dogs. So remember we were hearing some news that Boulder County was okay with not relocating, but actually okay now doing euthanization for the prairie dogs. And they went into why, and it isn't just a change in policy or just a new thought on this. It's that they really track the properties, and they have these metrics of prairie dogs versus quality of the land. And the trend over the time had just been that the prairie dogs were starting to take over, and that the actual plant life and everything in those spaces were deteriorating, and so things were out of balance is why it got to that. So it was just interesting to hear, you know, they did a bunch of case studies and showed some examples, so that was interesting. But the biggest thing I wanted to share was I went to Ember from Louisville, I think that's her name.
Yep.
She did a talk on how to start a ranger program. And it was really interesting because she talked about what they did to get a ranger in Louisville and how they started it as a pilot, and they had very clear rules about what the ranger would do. You know, they're not going to write tickets right away, and going into, you know, what authority do you want your rangers to have? There's a whole thing. But the cool thing is that she's right next door. So if we ever wanted to talk about a ranger program, but the biggest thing, you know, I asked her, I said, you know, how do you justify the cost? Or I asked her something like that. She said, well, you're kind of thinking about it wrong, because, you know, if you were trying to add another police officer because we wanted to look at speeding through town versus this, she said, well, maybe you could look at it by offloading some of what the police officers in town are doing by bringing a ranger on to have them do some of that work. So she was just talking about different ways of looking at it to justify a ranger within town. And they've said it's been very successful. She thinks that, you know, we could, if we wanted to do it, we could probably co-op with Boulder, so we could, you know, the ranger could also patrol the open space, which isn't the town of Superior. But there, you know, if we were serious about it, there could be some really creative ways that we could get a ranger into the town.
Are they still doing bike patrol? Yeah.
But so bike patrol, though, really can't enforce
No.
Right.
like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if there's an immediate concern, we call the rangers.
Right.
But Bike Patrol has no authority to write a ticket, to do anything. I mean,
So it was just fascinating. And the fact that she's next door and super friendly, and we know her now, especially from meeting with her this year, it was, you know, afterwards she said, if you guys ever have really any interest, you know, let me know. So anyway.
Do they have like one full-time person, or what do they do?
Yeah, they have a full-time person
Wow.
now that's doing it. It started out part-time, and now it's full-time, and they cruise around. And, I mean, they have a lot more area to cover
Yeah.
than we do, but,
Which open space would we have them on?
oh, I was thinking like just, like all the trails to the east, or to the west, like that whole area for Boulder County, rather than Superior.
I mean, Boulder County already has their own rangers.
Yeah, but they're thin. That's what they were saying. The coverage that they have, they said they hardly ever get over into this area.
See what I was at.
Over in Superior?
Yeah, on
Okay.
Mayhoff or Meadowlark. Now, I'm on those trails an awful lot, but I've
It's just
seen.
an idea. I mean,
No,
Sure.
I don't know if it applies, but do you remember Peter and I telling you about that hawk event? Like,
Yeah.
there was a down hawk by my house, and
Yeah.
I called, and FOCO said, oh, that's Town of Superior, we can't come there. I was like, well, then what do I do?
mhm,
So that would be one instance, wouldn't it?
mhm. Well,
I have contact information for
Peter
that
gave me
kind of
some.
stuff too. Okay. Just so you know, because I typically work with Ashley to handle any wildlife
Oh, that's good. So just call
problems
town
or issues. We have like raccoons in people's bird feeders, you know,
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
like that, all kinds of stuff.
And I'm not here to advocate that I think the town should do it, but if it ever came up again, there's a really good resource that would be willing to help us that's been through it recently. And it's just interesting to think differently about that, especially with how much chatter we see about dogs off leash versus on leash, right? It's an ongoing problem, seems like all the time, that this would be a solution to that, but is there enough work just for that problem?
Do they partner with the schools at all?
I don't know, but I'm sure they could, right? I mean, that's what they're saying. It's so wide open on what a
Yeah.
ranger's job description can be within a town that can be pretty interesting. So anyway, that's my COSA takeaway. Got on an awesome hike, got to go fishing for an afternoon, so it was sweet.
That's nice.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, so thank you for the opportunity. Okay. Trail continuity and open space continuity document updates. So I just want to let the group know that I did spend a lot of time updating the trail continuity document. I got all the trails from our last ranking in there, and there were a lot of new ones added, so it's all done. The best thing that's came out of that is that the list of things that we need to get cleaned up with ProStack for the next trail ranking is, I have a good list of what we need to get cleaned up out of those maps and out of those rankings. Allison, in that though, there were a few things where we were tracking costs for trails that were built, and we're just behind a little bit. Is that something that's easy for you to get? I mean, I don't know if I care that much about putting the costs.
Well, gosh, we've done it so many different ways to where OSAC hasn't been directly involved with the costs, and that's been a board, part of the board discussion, and, just ranking the trails that we thought, or that the group thought was the most important.
What I'm talking about are the finished trails. We were just putting the finished construction costs in there just so we had a feel for what things cost. So like when we did the little connector there by the Colton Trailhead, and now pretty soon we'll have Shan Shan, and we have the one into Rock Creek Village, and then the trail up McCaslin. Those are all finished that we originally wanted to put those costs in there.
Yeah, each time a trail is finished, as long, I could break out costs, but sometimes if it's part of a bigger project, then it's kind of hard to pull apart.
McCaslin would have been all part of the roundabout, and that would have been
yeah.
So.
And sometimes.
So I don't know if that matters. I don't want to create a bunch of work, so maybe if you're ever in that mode, we could get it. But.
Or if there's a new trail that we're trying to build, that we're trying to look at those costs, if that's like, explain to me what, so we would have this old cost, would it be to figure out, it's this new thing would probably cost this much?
That would be.
Okay. Well, we can always use other projects that may not even be open space trail specific to say a roads project or a streets project where a new sidewalk has been built, and then we could try to find more current cost information than.
That's true. So I think, are you guys okay with not having the completed trail cost information in the document?
Well, it was kind of a nice record of where the money goes, though. We know we can find that, but that's hard to do. How many do you not have the cost?
Well, I only have one trail that has cost information, but there've only been a few. There's 4 that we're going to need updates on.
I guess it all depends on how difficult that would be to find. If it's a huge pain.
I don't think it would be hugely difficult,
Okay,
but I was just trying to figure out.
It's just a history of what happened.
Right.
How about I send it to you, and if it's difficult, just say
Yes.
no. And if you say, gosh, yeah, I know that. Like the one into.
I can figure, it may take, because if one of them, I can
And even if
figure it
it's an
out.
estimate, I think it would be fine, but.
I think we can figure
Okay.
it out.
And then. Tracy,
Especially
I
if they
know-
have its own dedicated fund line where it came out
Yeah,
of.
I don't know if they
Yeah.
all, Shan Shan may or may not, because it's involved with Colton reconstruction and
Just the trailhead
yeah.
itself? Oh, we'll know that, because
Okay.
it was a specific
Okay,
budget line.
perfect.
Yeah.
And then Tracy, did you want to give any update on the open space continuity doc?
No, just that I met with Matt and got all the information about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I'm really grateful to him for that, and I just need to put it all in document form because it's in spreadsheet form, so that is on my to-do list.
But but those trailhead costs will not be finalized yet.
Oh, sure. No, it
All
would
the
be
work
once,
isn't done.
that one, we would just wait
Okay.
a few months and then ask. But, so for that Trails Continuity Doc, I did send it. Did that get into Dropbox? Do you know? I sent it. If not, I'll remind you. I
Okay.
sent it as a Word doc and it bounced because it was so large. So I then made it as a PDF to put in our Dropbox. I'll remind you.
But I can invite you to that to put it in there.
Okay. Okay.
Because if you can't send it to me unless you give me like a thumb drive or something, we'll just.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Okay, so then tree replacement town philosophy from town staff. This was, Allison, this was just a follow-up to all of Peter's questions about when trees go down, what is the, like, how does the town make decisions on what trees come out and then what trees go back in? And
Sure.
you supplied a nice email, but if you wouldn't
Yeah.
mind just summarizing, that would be helpful.
Yeah, sure. So, if there's a safety concern with a tree that's leaning or like branches have fallen off or it gets hit by lightning, then a lot of, those trees will be taken out. We always try to replace trees. And our tree replacement plan also has like a lot of different diverse species, because for example, what is happening with the ash borer. If we planted one of the same tree and then some type of problem starts occurring, then we lose all those trees, and if we don't, have diverse species in our tree canopy, then we lose them all. Also, where there are trees removed, typically trees are put back in that area. If those trees do not thrive in that area for soil condition reasons or chemicals or, whatever the reason is, if we've put them in approximately 3 different times, we do not end up planting in that spot anymore. So sometimes there are specific areas that we have problems with. We do have about 10% of the town's trees that are ash trees. So, that's going to be an ongoing item that we'll be working on.
Like those
So
were
that's
like in the
approximately
parking lot by
700 trees.
Williams Field were those ash trees,
Mhm.
right? So those all came out, but they had to, right?
Right, and they weren't, and they were dying, they were failing to thrive. So, we don't want to cut any trees down. We want to leave the trees. We feel like it's a great asset for the town. But we do have like this, trees aging out, trees getting damaged, not thriving, and so we're always trying to replace them.
And it's not willy-nilly how you decide what goes back in there, right? There's actually staff that looks at what kind of trees belong there.
Right, and
what
we
thrive.
use a front range tree list that is, from the university, CU, and the extension offices, and, it's a well thought out list that every municipality uses in the front range.
The interesting thing you told me was it 23%, 26% of new trees fail
Correct.
within a year, but they're under warranty, so they all get checked, and
Nice.
right before the year, and if they fail, they get replaced, so
Right.
It sucks that they
That's
fail,
with-
but that's just how, I guess that's just how it goes.
Well, and
right?
we have to be like, especially like for our new parks where developers and contractors have built a new park, and then we do inspections, and, we have lots of trees replaced, so yeah, it is the front range. If you don't have a water source, that's one interesting thing, like even talking about the trailhead in an earlier conversation, and if we put trees up there, we would have to have water. So every tree that you see has some type of water source as far as irrigation or drip. So that's another consideration for placement of trees. We wouldn't just put them where we don't have any water, and anything that has been planted that didn't have water has water now. So that's another expense that you kind of add on into that equation that you may not think about because we are like an arid desert climate, kind of.
High desert terrain.
Yeah.
So I emailed with Peter extensively about the Plains cottonwood and the difference between that and what is apparently been planted a lot in Superior, which is the narrow leaf cottonwood. and they don't last as long, and where the raptors like to go are the plains cottonwood.
And we know all about that.
I'm sure you do, far more
yeah.
than I do. But he wanted me to follow up, and since, he did so much work for us, I'm going to. He had a question about the species being planted down by the creek, and I know you were gonna follow up on that. It looks like the plains cotton weren't treated, planted, it was supposed to go every other one, like plains versus narrowwood, plains.
Right, and like what we just talked about the inspections, because those were new plantings. Those will be inspected. If they're the wrong type, they'll be changed out. And I mean, it happens. I mean, sometimes stock is low and, they can't find a particular species, and then they try to put something in, and then we catch it, and we'll switch it out, so.
Okay.
And the superintendent, already knows about this situation.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm assuming that they'll probably inspect it in the spring when everything leaks out again. It doesn't all look the same.
Okay.
So.
He also did note that the importance of those trees really is the 3 of the 4 raptor species that nested in Superior last year were in plains cottonwood, and 7 of the 10 documented nests for those species were in plains cottonwood. So
Right.
obviously if they're a hazard or they're dying, you can't, keep them up. But he had some suggestions for recommendations regarding plains cottonwood that we could potentially as OSAC put forward if anyone's interested. I assume that he was planning to do that had he been here or stayed on. Such as if one's removed, can we plant a new one in the same area? Unless an aging cottonwood poses a clear danger to people or property, keep it in place, as standing dead trees and fallen ones play a key role in the natural ecosystem. Immediately add additional ones where old ones have already disappeared, and avoid locating new infrastructure in areas where it could be impacted by existing mature trees. So,
From what was described, it sounds like that's the policy already.
yeah, but he's really specifically about those cottonwood trees because of the raptors.
Yeah, but I mean, I would think the town's looking at it from a bigger viewpoint than just the raptors, which, I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
I don't know what a recommendation would look like. I think that reading it, and we also had that email from Vanessa recently that had, along the same lines, a lot of similar things. I think that just keeping it in our mind that those big trees are important for raptors, that I just don't know any sort of recommendation makes a difference here. But if the group feels different, I'm open to.
Doesn't sound like it. I would like follow-up at the least on what they find in the inspection. If I'll try to remember, Allison. You try to remember in the spring, can you hear back from them regarding the plains cottonwood?
I mean, if they're the wrong species, they will be changed out.
Okay.
I mean, they will not, because
Yes, it's not like I should
the superintendent, but I mean, yeah, that's a great idea. I think the superintendent, if it is that hybrid, that narrow leaf hybrid, they don't really thrive after 30 years, so he's not super excited about those being in place of the plains cottonwood species. But then we've also had issues with the cotton in the past too, so there's always something, out there.
Right.
But yeah, they are definitely in that plan. They should be there.
Okay. Well, thank you for that information.
Yeah.
So that kind of rolls into the next one, which was the Coal Creek reconstruction, which the updates have been that it's done. Peter had asked for it to be left because of the tree issue that we just discussed, so somewhat think we've covered that unless there's any other update to give or anything else anyone wants to discuss. I think that one maybe should come off the standing update list since it's pretty done. And then Bird Box update, Allison.
So Peter spent the month, I think, last month in Grasso Park playing screech owl noises to attract. I did call the deputy and let him know there may be someone playing screech owl noises to attract the screech owls. So he's like, he really put his all into it. So we put boxes in Grasso, and we put some boxes in Community Park in the trees, and hopefully we have some residents soon. And we've been working on a webcam box. We have the boxes built, but we have some finer points and details to work on, like getting electricity to the, and this has always been a work in progress for this, that we needed to get electricity and Wi-Fi to these webcams in a spot where not a lot of people would be around, and it wouldn't infringe on some type of homeland security. You know, we have to have the camera only shooting inside of the box and not showing any surrounding areas. And so there's some finer logistical points, but we thought we would go ahead and put the easy instant gratification ones up, and then we're still working on electricity and Wi-Fi and things like that. But the boxes are built, they've been installed, and we have a couple more for the webcams, and hopefully
Are we gonna have a map of where these are installed on
No.
something, or are we just gonna say, okay, no
I don't
disclosure?
think you want people,
Well, one of the things that I think would be super cool is the guy from the bird, the representative from this group bans the chicks. And we could maybe have a very select group, like maybe the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts or somebody, you know, be able to come and have like an educational piece where he's banding the birds, but that will divulge where they are. So I guess that's a topic for everybody to think about.
Yeah,
But they do band them.
that's cool.
Yeah.
it's really cool.
And they're cute. They're supposed to be super cute.
No. Well, it'll make a good story.
Yeah.
when
So
we
we
bring
could
it
take
up,
pictures
so,
or
yeah.
be there, or at least our group could be there when they're banding them, and write an article and take some pictures, and we can get it in the newsletter.
That's a good idea.
Did Peter identify where we're gonna put the cameras yet, or before he left? Do we know
Well,
where we're gonna put
It's,
them?
it's not, there's like a lot of moving parts to that, because it's not just Peter where he would
But it's
identify.
electricity and all that, yeah, I know.
Yeah, but the bird representative, the expert, he identified the ones that we've already put in, and some of the other places where we could get Wi-Fi and electricity, he did say, oh, these would be fine. And really, almost everywhere would be fine, except for areas that are gonna have a lot of construction, which some areas will be. So, but we have a bunch up.
Yeah, keep us posted.
I will.
Good luck. Thank you.
Thank
Is he gonna keep working with you even though he's off the board?
I don't know.
Okay.
I just found out he resigned from the committee, so I don't know. I haven't heard.
Do you want me to reach out to him? I mean, he's offered to help transition that, so
Yeah.
do we need someone from the committee to be involved with this last box? If you need,
I
tell you
don't
what, if you
think.
need something, just
yeah,
call me.
I will.
Call me.
I think we're good. We just have to figure out internally the electricity and the Wi-Fi, and that the camera can speak to the Wi-Fi, like that it's a good enough signal and stuff like that.
Right.
And that doesn't, we don't need an extra person for, but maybe the educational piece, and
Right.
once the banding comes up, I think we should have somebody.
Well, there's some cool
Into it.
ideas for Ashley also.
Yeah.
Potential things for her to, maybe even not bringing a group out, but for her to be involved in, just, I know she would love that.
And she
to
does
be
really
involved.
cool videos, and we always withhold one lanyap type of a program in her agreement for things like this.
That
You know,
just sort
that,
of come up.
like our dog waste video or
Yeah.
something
Oh,
like that.
okay. Okay, cool. Okay. Standing updates, we got a few more. All right, Conservation Fund update. Tracy, do you have anything for
Yeah,
us?
it's a little delayed. Justin told me hopefully an answer within the next week. I don't know any more than that. I did ask him about the mineral rights. He said they will seek to address if and when they get a contract. That's all I know.
But that's encouraging, that we
It's
might
not a
know
no.
within a week.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
not
that-
not denied, so
Yeah.
I'll take that as a good thing.
You know, I guess in that job for him, he's got to have the long view on these kind of
Yeah.
things, where these projects take forever.
Yeah,
So
I think
him
this is
having
probably a
patience.
faster one than, I mean, it's slow for us, because we've been waiting forever, but faster for him than most, I would guess.
Well, good luck. We're pulling for him, for everyone
I know,
here,
board,
so.
town staff, and,
Thank
yep,
you.
everyone.
Rocky Mountain Greenway or Rocky Flats, Joel?
So just really two quick things on it. One, I sent an email out to the group. Broomfield voted to put a line item in the budget for Jefferson Parkway, although it doesn't commit them to spending the money, and there was some verbiage around if that current board would support it if it came up anyway. It's something to keep our eye on because Jefferson Parkway obviously plays into Rocky Mountain Greenway and Rocky Flats. The one thing specific to Rocky Mountain Greenway, and it was up here a minute ago, BOCO's response was they'll look at Colton when they determine whether it's going to be part of the Rocky Mountain Greenway, which certainly has some impacts on us because if Colton is part of Rocky Mountain Greenway, that means Rocky Mountain Greenway comes somewhere through Superior.
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
But it could be the loop around the Greenway that comes through Superior.
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
Right, I'm not sure whether it's a good thing or bad thing if it comes through Superior. In one case, it could be bad if people are cruising through there and then coming right into town.
Yeah.
Or it could be good if they're bypassing as a way to get around, so.
I mean, I think the takeaway to me is this thing is still in motion. We still don't have a solid plan as to where the routing is, but we should keep an eye on it.
Have you guys ever been out to, I know, Joel, you've been to the trailhead out there, the
On
Greenway
Rocky Flats?
Trailhead.
Yeah.
I've been out there looking a couple times. It's always a shame to me that they don't mention the risk. Any of the signage. You can kind of infer it if you read the sign
But I think that's
closely.
the DOE's purpose stance.
I
is
know, but still.
We feel it's completely safe. We being the DOE's stance.
No, I know, it seems like it could be an interesting project to try to change that, but that seems like that could be a incredible amount of work. And I don't know if we've been there, that maybe is more as a citizen rather than as a committee.
Well, the CDPHE study is supposed to be done in April 2020, I think that is what they've said. So after they have all of that data, that might be a great time to.
Yeah, that's true, that might be a time to.
Tipping point. Is
Yeah.
it unsafe and do we need?
That's a good point.
Does CDP say it's unsafe? I should say that
Yeah.
instead.
Okay,
That's a great idea.
thanks, Joel. Oil and gas, Marcy, you have anything for us?
Well, I actually researched it before I came here tonight, and I've got some good news and bad news. Drilling continues in Colorado. Last year, we produced almost 180 million barrels of crude oil, and it looks like we're going to exceed that in 2019. There appears to be no impact of the new law on drilling permits. They continue to be approved, even though the environmental groups have asked for a moratorium on new permit approvals. Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission appears to be ignoring them. They are working on draft regulations, but from what I see, they can take up to 2 years. Although Tracy was telling me they're being done in groups, which I wasn't aware of.
Well, stakeholders, being oil and gas or environmental or whomever, can go to those rules and regulations. I think the town of Superior was talking about sending someone, or I don't remember where that all ended up, but yeah, so it happens in chunks, the rules and regs about different topics. And one is upcoming soon, so they're in process, but it's slow as molasses.
Yeah, the good news is that Adams County has now come out with draft regulations at the local level, and they prohibit drilling in areas zoned residential. All new drilling projects must be 1,000 feet from homes and schools. Currently, it's 500 feet. The environmentalists wanted 2,500 feet, so you can see where they're at 1,000 feet.
Wasn't that a ballot initiative a year ago, that it had to be half a mile?
Yeah, it was. They also have air quality controls now, noise mitigation controls, insurance mandates, and they've established, this is interesting, they've established a county level inspection and enforcement system that these new rules are going to be enforced. And so that's a big step for Adams County, although not as probably as progressive as some people would like to see it. It's a big step forward. So, and I guess Boulder County still has just extended its moratorium another 6 months. So nothing's coming out of there right now. So they had 6 months and they just extended it 6 months. So.
Okay, well, thank you.
Sure.
Last item, the Raptor program.
So I was told that the Raptor minutes, the Raptor report did not get to the board at our last meeting.
Oh, I watched the minutes. I didn't see anywhere where it was requested to go to the board.
Right, that's what Peter said. Thought it was his.
Huh?
Yeah. So do we want to send it to the board?
Well, I don't know if we need to send it to the board or do we want to get it on our website?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know in the new system how we would actually add it to our minutes.
He did, I mean, he wanted to, but he's not.
Well, I think that if
No.
we want to encourage them to continue going, and one of the benefits we offer is archiving their reports, then we should start with the report from last year. I mean, I absolutely think we should put it on our website as a sign of good faith to keep working with these folks, but I don't know about sending it to the board. Like, does it have to go to the board in our minutes before we can put it on the website?
Did everybody agree with the recommendations in the report?
That's a good question.
I haven't even.
I don't remember.
Just thinking
read the
about it,
report.
if the group wants to, take it on, they may want to make sure, the group may want to make sure that they agree with everything that's in it.
That's true, because by putting it
Not
on our
saying it's-
website,
I'm
it
just a
somewhat
question.
implies that it's coming from us.
Right.
And
I don't
coming,
remember reading it.
what's that?
Did we all read it?
I did, it was 2 months ago, I think.
At least.
Oh,
It wasn't
yeah,
specifically.
September 18th.
Did it come to the board?
It came to you guys.
Oh,
I mean, it
okay.
came to us. I went back to see if I saw it. and
Didn't we?
It
I
did
don't
not come to
remember
us.
it being discussed, so. But now we have the HHR breeding bird summary on our website right now
Okay.
from this year. So it does
That
seem
we
like.
did review.
What's that?
We did review that one as a
Yeah,
group.
we did. We talked about
We
it.
didn't review this new one.
Well,
It came
It's-
September 18th.
It's really good. You should just scan it. If you can only read the summary. And the photos
I
are so
think
good.
I did, I just think it's been 2 months. I really remember last week. But so what do we want to do here? I mean, I don't know, I think we should review it. We're planning on not having a meeting next time.
Oh, that's a good point.
I know. Is everyone, I mean, we are,
Can we do it, just bring it to January? Is it too full in January? Can everyone just review it the next 2 months and we can talk about it briefly, and if we want to recommend it or not
we're
recommend it?
going into a pretty busy work plan
I know.
in the first quarter. Now, it should be a pretty quick, we don't, yay or nay, right?
Yeah,
And I
the time
think
is,
that-
because
We're not,
people
we don't have
reading
the
it
editing
beforehand.
rights to it. We shouldn't be
No,
editing
we should
it.
just say, are we comfortable with this on our website? Does it need any sort of disclaimer that this is the work of this volunteer commit? Like, we might just ask them to add a disclaimer to the top of the
Sure.
document.
Or do we adopt
That
it
might-
as OSACs?
Yeah,
I guess I can add that to pre-work for January.
yeah, I think that's a
Okay.
good, I think that's a reasonable way forward.
And if it's going to get updated every year, that's another question, because we don't have our 2 members that
Yeah.
were really involved in
And
how that's
And
going to
if,
continue.
and take it on early to see if they are willing to continue.
Yeah.
I mean, while we have it here, I'll reach out sooner than then to see.
I think that would be great, Ryan, if you reached out to
Uh-huh.
Peter. But to Allison's point, if they want to keep being involved, just going back to, Peter said, we need to create a data repository, recruit new volunteers, which sounds like you're already doing, right? Deal with staff and board questions and communications. And for you?
We will do the volunteer,
Okay.
if they need them, because
Okay.
they need so few,
Right.
that's the question.
He
Like,
said
I need
there's-
to know if they need them.
Quite a lot of turnover on this kind of thing. And then have a point person who would be willing to put a few hours a month into coordinating it between December and July. So that's what we need to do, he thinks, to keep it under OSAC.
But you don't think he's willing to do that as an independent?
Again, I'm happy to help OSAC with the project in whatever way would be useful to you, except for those 4 things. I'm also willing to run it as a downtown-related effort or let it hibernate. Please let me know what OSAC decides.
In December to June, I think the reason it's those months is that's the time when the hatchlings and everything is happening.
Yep.
So,
Maybe what I'll do is I'll just reach out to him. Maybe it'd be best to just sit down and get some coffee and talk through this. That would be a good approach. I'll take that action item.
Sure,
to
sounds good.
Just see what, and I'll fold all of this into that and talk through his issues in terms of the recruiting, the data. You know, the real work here is all the data.
I mean, that document's fantastic, all the data they collected.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, I just
great.
don't know
And
if
also managing the
someone-
volunteers, you know, that's a little.
Yeah, I mean,
bit of
that's where all the
too.
work goes, and it's not, like, we're not asking staff to do that. So it would have to be someone from our volunteer group or someone from their volunteer group that would be willing to, and I'll just talk him through that and just come up with ideas and figure out. I mean, we all agree that this is important. It meets one of our goals of wildlife encouragement. It actually has some legs or wings or whatever we want to say, where before we couldn't come up with anything, right? I mean, it actually taken us further than anything we'd ever done. So
We're really lucky.
hate to lose the momentum on this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, okay,
Cool.
all right.
Where do we find a copy of the report?
In your email.
My
you should have it.
At your old little
September 18th.
So she has a new
I
email
have a new
address.
email address, but we've updated it. You and I have updated it, so, but stuff is
You and
still going.
Karen?
Hmm?
You and Karen have updated your email address?
Can you just shoot us an email?
Karen would
with
be
your
the
new
one to
Because
work on
I'm
committee.
not getting emails, so.
I'm going to
You're not
send it in
getting emails?
pre-work for January, so it.
Like, I didn't get Peter's email. It went to my old firm.
I went to
Oh, because
OSAC.
Karen Snortland is the committee coordinator.
Karen is, okay.
Yeah, and I
So-
haven't ever gotten a new email for you.
Well, I started my own firm 3
Oh,
months
congrats.
ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. It's been exciting.
Yeah.
It is exhausting.
Okay, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
At 9:22.
I don't even need to know that much.
Oh, we don't?
Double click. Double click.
Thank you all. Oh, hey, so we are going to plan on doing dinner